The aroma of Earth's spices wafts through the air as Mark Bailey's creation sizzles, unaware it's about to ignite an interstellar incident. In the gleaming kitchen of Harmony Station, humanity's culinary ambassador puts the finishing touches on his signature spice-infused roast. The dish, destined for the most crucial diplomatic dinner in Earth's history, carries the weight of human-Shindy relations on its savory crust. Mark's hands move with practiced precision, his focus unwavering as he plates the roast. The Shindy, known for their stoic nature and disinterest in human culture, pose a formidable challenge. This meal is Earth's last chance to spark a connection with the advanced alien race. As Mark exits the kitchen, he catches sight of the Shindy delegation entering the grand dining hall. Their rigid postures and expressionless faces betray no emotion. Among them, Arya, the ambassador's daughter, stands out with her vibrant blue skin and piercing silver eyes. She surveys the room with thinly veiled disdain. The tension in the air is palpable as human and Shindy representatives take their seats. Commander Sarah Perry, the station security chief, watches from the sidelines, her hand resting near her sidearm. The weight of the moment isn't lost on anyone present. Mark's dish is served, and he holds his breath as Arya reluctantly takes a bite. For a moment, time stands still. Then, chaos erupts. Arya's eyes widen, her body trembles, and a wave of pheromones floods the room. The other Shindy react instantly, their composure crumbling as they struggle against an unseen force. Human representatives jump to their feet, confusion and alarm evident on their faces. Commander Perry barks orders into her comm unit, calling for backup. In the midst of the commotion, Mark's eyes lock with Arya's. An electric connection forms between them, transcending species and protocol. As Shindy officials attempt to regain control and human diplomats scramble to understand the situation, news of the incident spreads like wildfire through the station. Within minutes, Earth's government receives a chilling ultimatum from the Shindy High Command: surrender the recipe and the chef, or face diplomatic severance and potential military action. Mark finds himself whisked away by Commander Perry's security team, placed under protective custody as anger among the Shindy diplomats reaches a boiling point. Isolated in a secure section of Harmony Station, he grapples with the knowledge that his culinary creation may have just become the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. Meanwhile, Arya battles against her newfound, overwhelming attraction to human cuisine and, by extension, to Mark himself. Her body craves the taste that set her ablaze, putting her at odds with everything she's ever known about her people and their rigid cultural norms. As Earth's scientific community mobilizes to unravel the mystery of Mark's dish and its effects on Shindy physiology, the chef begins his own experiments. In his makeshift kitchen-turned-laboratory, Mark works tirelessly to recreate the effect, hoping to use it as a bargaining chip to save humanity from the looming Shindy threat. Unbeknownst to Mark, Arya has begun her own covert mission. Driven by an irresistible craving for both his food and his company, she searches for ways to contact him, risking everything in the process. The fate of two species now hangs in the balance, all because of one unexpectedly arousing meal. The chaos unleashed by Mark's culinary creation rippled through Harmony Station like a shockwave. As Earth's scientific community scrambled to unravel the mystery, Dr. Elias Mercer, the station's lead xenobiologist, found himself at the forefront of the investigation. In his lab, he hunched over an array of sophisticated equipment, carefully analyzing samples of Mark's dish. "Fascinating," he muttered, eyes fixed on a holographic display before him. "The molecular structure of these spices. It's unlike anything I've seen before." Meanwhile, Commander Sarah Perry strode through the corridors of the station, her face a mask of perseverance. She barked orders into her comm unit as she approached Mark's quarters. "I want a full security detail here now. No one gets in or out without my express permission." As additional guards took their positions outside Mark's room, the chef inside remained oblivious to the increased security measures. His makeshift kitchen laboratory buzzed with activity as he meticulously recreated his signature dish, tweaking ingredients and cooking methods. Mark wiped sweat from his brow, the aroma of his experiments filling the air. If I can just replicate that reaction, he said to himself, maybe we can turn this disaster into an opportunity. Unbeknownst to Mark, his culinary experiments were having an unexpected effect. Trace amounts of the aromatic compounds seeped into the station's ventilation system, slowly spreading throughout nearby sections. Several decks away, Arya found herself drawn inexorably towards Mark's location. Her body tingled with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation as she navigated the station's corridors, her diplomatic clearance granting her access to areas normally off-limits. As she moved deeper into the restricted sections, silent alarms triggered in the security center. Lieutenant Jake Torres, Commander Perry's second-in-command, frowned at the flashing alert on his console. "Commander," he called out, "we have unauthorized movement in Section 7. It's the Shindy ambassador's daughter." Perry's eyes narrowed. "Intercept her, but handle this with extreme caution. We can't afford another diplomatic incident." As Arya drew closer to Mark's quarters, the faint scent of his cooking grew stronger. Her silver eyes widened, pupils dilating as her body began to respond to the familiar aroma. She quickened her pace, her breath coming in short gasps. Just as she rounded the final corner, Arya found herself face-to-face with a team of human security officers led by Lieutenant Torres. The Shindy ambassador's daughter froze, her body trembling with conflicting impulses. "Ambassador Arya," Torres said, his voice calm but firm, "I'm going to have to ask you to come with us." Arya's gaze darted between the security team and the door to Mark's quarters, just visible down the corridor. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could utter a word, a new wave of Mark's cooking aromas washed over her. Her knees buckled slightly, and she steadied herself against the wall. I need to see him," she managed to say, her voice husky with desire. "Please, you don't understand. I must." Torres took a step forward, his hand outstretched. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I have my orders. We need to escort you back to the diplomatic quarters." As the standoff intensified, the situation elsewhere on the station grew increasingly complex. In the main conference room, Admiral Zorn, Arya's father, faced off against a group of nervous human diplomats. "This culinary attack on my people will not go unanswered," Zorn thundered, his fists clenched at his sides. "We demand immediate action." The human representatives exchanged worried glances, their carefully prepared speeches forgotten in the face of the Admiral's fury. As they struggled to formulate a response, an aide burst into the room, his face pale. "Sirs, we have reports of multiple Shindy experiencing unusual reactions throughout the station," he announced breathlessly. Admiral Zorn's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed dangerously. "Explain," he demanded. As the aide detailed the spreading effects of Mark's cooking, Dr. Mercer burst into Commander Perry's office, clutching a data pad. "Commander, I've made a breakthrough," he exclaimed, his eyes bright with excitement. The combination of Earth's spices, when subjected to Mark's specific cooking process, creates a compound that interacts with Shindy olfactory receptors. It triggers a hormonal cascade that results in the intense arousal we witnessed. Perry absorbed the information, her mind racing. "So, it wasn't an attack at all. It was an accident." "Precisely," Mercer nodded. "But there's more." The effects seemed to be intensifying and spreading through the station's ventilation system. As this revelation sank in, Perry's comm unit crackled to life. Lieutenant Torres's voice came through, tight with tension. "Commander, we've intercepted Ambassador Arya, but she's resistant. And, sir, she's exhibiting signs of the same reaction as before. What are your orders?" Perry closed her eyes briefly, weighing her options. The situation was balancing on a knife's edge, with potential for disaster or breakthrough in every direction. "Hold your position, Lieutenant," she said finally. "I'm on my way. And get me a direct line to Admiral Zorn. It's time we put all our cards on the table." As Perry strode out of her office, the fate of human-Shindy relations hung in the balance, all hinging on the unexpected consequences of one chef's culinary creation. Commander Perry's mind raced as she processed the information from Dr. Mercer and Lieutenant Torres. The situation was escalating rapidly, and she knew she needed to act fast to prevent a full-scale diplomatic disaster. "Lieutenant," she said, her voice steady despite the tension, "escort Ambassador Aria to Meeting Room 7. We'll set up a controlled environment there." She tapped her comm unit. "DR. Mercer, I need you to prepare the room with advanced air filtration. We can't risk any more of these compounds spreading through the station." As Torres moved to carry out her orders, Perry turned her attention to Mark's quarters. She strode purposefully down the corridor, her security detail falling in step behind her. Reaching the chef's makeshift lab, she pressed the comm panel. "Mr. Bailey," she called out, "I need you to come with me. Bring samples of your experimental dishes, but make sure they're sealed tight." Inside, Mark looked up from his work, surprise evident on his face. He quickly gathered his creations, carefully sealing each container before stepping out to meet the commander. "What's going on?" he asked, noting the increased security presence. Perry's expression remained neutral as she replied, "We're arranging a controlled meeting between you and Ambassador Aria. We need to understand exactly what's happening here." As they made their way to the meeting room, Perry briefed Mark on the situation. His eyes widened as he realized the full impact of his culinary creation. "I never meant for any of this to happen," he said, his voice tinged with worry. "I know," Perry reassured him. "That's why we need your help to figure this out." They arrived at Meeting Room 7 to find Dr. Mercer making final adjustments to the air filtration system. The room had been transformed into a sterile environment, with monitors lining one wall and a large one-way mirror on another. "It's ready, Commander," Mercer reported. "The air scrubber should contain any aromatic compounds released during the meeting." Perry nodded, then turned to Mark. "Are you ready for this?" Mark took a deep breath, steeling himself. "As ready as I'll ever be." The door slid open, revealing Aria on the other side. The moment their eyes met, the air seemed to crackle with energy. Aria's silver eyes widened, her blue skin flushing a deeper shade as she took in Mark's presence. "Please come in," Perry said, ushering Aria into the room. As the door closed behind them, she added, "We'll be observing from next door. If you need anything, just signal." Left alone, Mark and Aria stood in silence for a moment, the tension between them palpable. Mark was the first to break the silence. I'm sorry about what happened," he began, his voice soft. "I never intended to cause any trouble." Aria took a step closer, her movements almost dreamlike. "Your food," she whispered, her voice husky. "It awakened something in me. In all of us. I've never felt anything like it." Mark swallowed hard, acutely aware of her proximity. "I've been working on some new recipes," he said, gesturing to the sealed containers. "Would you like to try them? Under controlled conditions, of course." Aria nodded eagerly, her eyes never leaving Mark's face. In the observation room, Perry, Mercer, and a small team of human and Shindy officials watched intently as Mark began presenting his new creations to Aria. Dr. Mercer's fingers flew over his datapad, recording every minute reaction. "Fascinating," he murmured. "The neural responses are even more pronounced than before." As Aria tasted each sample, her reactions grew more intense. Her body trembled, her breathing quickened, and her eyes shone with an inner light. Mark found himself captivated by her responses, a mix of scientific curiosity and something deeper, more primal. Suddenly, Arya gasped, her back arching as she tasted one particular dish. A wave of pheromones burst from her, so potent that even the air filtration system couldn't fully contain it. "Evacuate the observation room," Perry ordered, recognizing the danger immediately. As they rushed out, alarms began blaring throughout the station. In the meeting room, Mark and Arya remained oblivious to the chaos unfolding around them, lost in their shared moment of culinary and sensory exploration. Meanwhile, in the main conference room, Admiral Zorn was in the middle of a heated exchange with human diplomats when the new wave of pheromones reached him. His words trailed off mid-sentence, his eyes growing wide as the compound took effect. I feel," he stammered, his usual stoic demeanor crumbling. Emotions he had never experienced before washed over him in waves. Joy, sorrow, exhilaration, all mingling together in a dizzying rush. The human diplomats watched in astonishment as the formidable Shindy leader seemed to transform before their eyes, his rigid posture softening, his face becoming more expressive. Throughout Harmony Station, similar scenes played out as Shindy personnel were affected by the spreading pheromones. Some burst into song. Others began creating impromptu works of art, while others engaged in deep, emotional conversations with bewildered human colleagues. Commander Perry's voice cut through the chaos over the station-wide comm system. "Attention all personnel. We are initiating containment protocols. All Shindy individuals are to be escorted to designated safe zones immediately. This is not a drill." As security teams mobilized to manage the situation, Perry turned to Dr. Mercer. "What exactly are we dealing with here, Doctor?" Mercer's eyes were glued to his datapad, analyzing the incoming data. "Commander, I believe we may be witnessing the beginning of a fundamental change in Shindy physiology. The compounds in Mark's cooking appear to be altering their brain chemistry, enhancing their capacity for emotion and sensory experience." Perry's brow furrowed as she contemplated the implications. "Are these changes permanent?" "It's too early to say for certain," Mercer replied, "but the potential is there. We could be looking at a complete shift in Shindy culture and biology." As the situation on Harmony Station spiraled into controlled chaos, Mark and Arya remained in their isolated bubble, continuing their intimate culinary exploration. Neither of them could have imagined that their encounter would become the catalyst for a transformation that would reshape the future of human-Shindy relations. Relations hung in the balance, all hinging on the unexpected consequences of one chef's culinary creation. As the situation on Harmony Station spiraled into controlled chaos, the effects of Mark's cooking began to spread rapidly through the station's ventilation system. Commander Sarah Perry's voice cut through the din of alarms and confused chatter. "Initiate emergency containment protocols," she ordered, her tone brooking no argument. "Reconfigure environmental systems to create isolated zones for the affected Shindy population." The station's operations team sprang into action, fingers flying over control panels as they worked to implement Perry's directives. Bulkheads slid into place, sealing off sections of the station and creating a patchwork of quarantine zones. Meanwhile, in his makeshift lab, Dr. Elias Mercer hunched over an array of equipment, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We need to develop a neutralizing agent," he muttered to himself, eyes darting between microscope and computer readouts. "Something to counteract these pheromones before the situation escalates further." As the crisis unfolded, a sleek military vessel glided into one of Harmony Station's docking bays. The ship's hull bore the name Horizon in bold letters. Its commanding officer, Captain Eli Hawkins, strode purposefully down the gangway, his face a mask of concern as he took in the unusual activity around him. "What's the situation?" Hawkins demanded, approaching the nearest security officer. The officer's eyes widened in recognition. "Captain Hawkins, sir. We're dealing with a..." unique diplomatic incident involving Shindy physiology and human cuisine. Hawkins raised an eyebrow. I'm going to need more details than that. Take me to your commanding officer. As Hawkins was brought up to speed, Mark and Arya remained oblivious to the chaos erupting around them, ensconced in their isolated meeting room. Mark carefully unsealed another container, revealing a steaming dish of fragrant curry. This is a traditional recipe from a region of Earth called India, he explained, his voice soft with reverence for the cuisine. The complex blend of spices creates a unique flavor profile that. His words trailed off as he watched Arya's reaction. Her silver eyes widened, pupils dilating as she inhaled the aromatic steam. A shiver ran through her body, her blue skin flushing a deeper shade. It's incredible, Arya whispered, her voice husky with desire. I've never experienced anything like this before. As Mark guided Arya through a culinary tour of Earth's diverse cuisines, their conversation deepened. They shared stories of their childhoods, their hopes and dreams, finding unexpected common ground despite their vastly different backgrounds. However, their intimate exploration was about to be interrupted. In the station's environmental control room, a junior technician's face paled as he noticed a critical error flashing on his screen. "Sir," he called out, panic evident in his voice. "The air filtration system for meeting room 7 is malfunctioning. The pheromone-laden air is seeping in." Inside the room, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Arya gasped, her back arching as a fresh wave of pheromones washed over her. Her heightened senses went into overdrive, every nerve ending seeming to tingle with electricity. "Mark," she breathed, her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made his breath catch. I need." Before Mark could respond, Arya closed the distance between them. Her hands cupped his face, and she pressed her lips to his in a passionate kiss. Mark froze for a moment, caught off guard by the sudden intimacy, but soon found himself responding, swept up in the intensity of the moment. Outside the meeting room, the situation continued to escalate. Admiral Zorn, still under the influence of the pheromones, had undergone a radical transformation. Gone was his usual stern demeanor, replaced by an almost childlike wonder as he gazed around the conference room. "Your station," he said, his voice filled with awe as he addressed the stunned human diplomats. "It's so vibrant. How have I never noticed the beauty of its design before?" The human representatives exchanged bewildered glances, unsure how to respond to this unprecedented display of emotion from the usually stoic Shindy leader. As this scene unfolded, Captain Hawkins strode into the command center, his eyes quickly assessing the various holographic displays showing the station's status. "Commander Perry," he said, nodding to the station's commanding officer, "I've been briefed on the situation. How can I assist?" Perry's relief at having another experienced officer to consult was evident. "Captain Hawkins, your timing couldn't be better. We're dealing with a potential diplomatic nightmare here." Hawkins' eyes narrowed as he considered the situation. After a moment he spoke, his voice filled with persistence. "Commander, I have a proposal. This pheromone-induced state of the Shindy leaders. It could be an opportunity, a chance to fast-track negotiations for a more comprehensive human-Shindy alliance." Perry's eyebrows shot up. "That's a bold move, Captain. The ethical implications alone are significant, I know," Hawkins finished for her. "But consider the potential benefits. We may never have another chance like this to bridge the gap between our species." As they debated the merits of Hawkins' plan, Dr. Mercer burst into the room, his eyes wild with excitement and concern. "Commander, Captain," he said, slightly out of breath, "I've made a discovery. The prolonged exposure to these pheromones. It's causing subtle but permanent changes in Shindy brain chemistry. It's enhancing their capacity for emotional expression and empathy. The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air. Perry and Hawkins exchanged a loaded glance, both realizing that the decisions they made in the next few hours could shape the future of human-Shindy relations for generations to come. As they grappled with this new information, reports began flooding in from all over the station. Human crew members were starting to exhibit heightened emotional states and increased empathy towards the Shindy. The lines between the two species were blurring in ways no one had anticipated. In the isolated meeting room, Mark and Arya remained locked in their embrace, unaware that their private moment had become the catalyst for a potential revolution in interspecies relations. Outside, the station buzzed with activity as security teams scrambled to contain the spreading effects. Diplomats argued over the best course of action, and scientists raced to understand the full implications of what was unfolding. The fate of two species hung in the balance, all because of one chef's experimental cuisine. As tensions rose and the stakes increased, the events on Harmony Station were poised to reshape the galactic landscape in ways no one could have predicted. As tensions rose and the stakes increased, the events on Harmony Station were poised to reshape the galactic landscape in ways no one could have predicted. Amidst the chaos, Dr. Elias Mercer's fingers flew over his datapad, his eyes darting between holographic displays of molecular structures. "Eureka!" he exclaimed, startling a nearby lab assistant. "I've done it!" Commander Sarah Perry rushed to his side, her face a mixture of hope and apprehension. "What have you found, Doctor?" Mercer's eyes gleamed with excitement as he explained, "I've developed a neutralizing agent that can counteract the pheromones. But there's a catch. It needs to be ingested orally and mixed with a specific combination of earth spices to be effective." Perry's brow furrowed as she processed this information. After a moment of contemplation, she made a decision that would alter the course of events on the station. "Get me Mark," she ordered, her voice firm. "We need him to create a new dish incorporating this neutralizing agent. It's our best chance at containing the situation." As Perry's team scrambled to locate the chef, Captain Eli Hawkins received an urgent communication from Earth. The holographic image of a stern-faced government official flickered to life in his quarters. "Captain," the official began, his voice grave, "we have serious concerns about the long-term effects of these pheromones on Shindy biology and culture. You are hereby ordered to prepare for a possible evacuation of all humans from Harmony Station if diplomatic efforts fail." Hawkins' face hardened as he acknowledged the order, his mind already racing with potential scenarios and strategies. Meanwhile, in the isolated meeting room, Mark and Arya's intimate moment was suddenly interrupted by a loud hissing sound. The air filtration system had malfunctioned, flooding the room with unfiltered air thick with pheromones. Arya's eyes widened, her pupils dilating to an impossible size. Her breath came in short, rapid gasps as her body trembled with overwhelming sensations. "Mark," she whispered, her voice husky and urgent. I can't control it anymore." Before Mark could react, Arya lunged forward, her hands grasping at his clothes. He felt a strange tingling sensation where her skin touched his, realizing with a start that her exoskeleton was attempting to merge with him. "Arya, wait!" Mark gasped, torn between his growing attraction to her and his confusion at this alien mating ritual. He gently but firmly grasped her wrists, trying to create some distance between them. "We need to slow down. This isn't. We can't." Their struggle was interrupted by the sound of the door sliding open. A security team burst in, quickly separating the two and escorting them out of the room. In the main conference room, Admiral Zorn swayed slightly on his feet, his eyes unfocused, but filled with an uncharacteristic warmth as he addressed the stunned human diplomats. "My friends," he began, his voice filled with emotion, "I see now what we've been missing all these years. We must come together, humans and Shindy, in ways we never imagined before." The diplomats exchanged bewildered glances as Zorn launched into an impassioned speech about shared colonies and cultural exchange programs. One of them discreetly activated a recording device, sensing the historical significance of this moment. As news of the situation spread throughout the station, a group of human crew members gathered in a dimly lit maintenance corridor. At their center stood Victor Reeves, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous light. "Don't you see?" he hissed to his followers. "Mark's cooking isn't just food, it's a weapon. If we can get our hands on those recipes, we could control Shindy populations across the galaxy." The group murmured in agreement, their faces a mixture of excitement and apprehension as they began formulating their plan. In the science lab, Dr. Mercer's excited voice cut through the tension. "Commander Perry, Captain Hawkins, you need to see this." The two officers hurried over to his workstation, where a complex neural map rotated slowly in the air. "The pheromones aren't just causing temporary changes," Mercer explained, his voice tinged with awe. "They're permanently altering Shindy brain chemistry, enhancing their capacity for emotion and empathy. And these changes, they're heritable." Perry and Hawkins exchanged a loaded glance, the implications of this discovery weighing heavily on them both. "We need to contain this," Perry said finally, her voice firm. "Initiate a station-wide quarantine. All non-essential personnel are to remain in their quarters until further notice." As Perry's order was broadcast across the station, a group of young Shindy diplomats gathered in one of the common areas, their faces alight with a newfound sense of purpose. "We can't let them suppress this," one of them urged the others. "These changes, they're not a threat. They're an opportunity for true understanding between our species." The group nodded in agreement, beginning to plan their peaceful protest against the quarantine. In a secured kitchen, Mark worked feverishly to create the neutralizing dish, his brow furrowed in concentration. As he experimented with different combinations of spices, he realized that his unique cooking style was the key to properly activating the neutralizing agent. "Commander," he called out to Perry, who was overseeing his work, "I think I've got it, but it has to be prepared exactly this way, or it won't work." Perry nodded grimly, understanding that Mark had just become even more crucial to resolving the crisis. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Arya had managed to escape from the medical bay where she had been taken after the incident with Mark. Driven by an irresistible urge to be near him, she moved through the station like a blur, evading security teams and spreading pheromones in her wake. As multiple factions pursued their agendas, and Arya's escape threatened to spread the effects even further, the fate of human-Shindy relations hung in the balance. The next few hours would determine whether Mark's accidental culinary diplomacy would usher in a new era of cooperation or ignite an interstellar conflict. Crisis as the alarms continued to blare throughout the station. In the secured kitchen, Mark's hands moved with practiced precision, adding pinches of exotic spices to the simmering pot. The aroma of the neutralizing dish filled the air, a tantalizing blend of earth and alien scents that seemed to dance on the edge of perception. Commander Perry watched intently, her brow furrowed with concern. "How much longer, Mark?" "Just a few more minutes," he replied, not taking his eyes off the bubbling concoction. "The balance has to be perfect, or it won't work." As Mark put the finishing touches on the dish, Perry's comm unit chirped. She answered it quickly, her expression growing more serious with each passing second. "Understood. Implement Containment Protocol Delta," she ordered before turning back to Mark. "We need to move. Now." Mark nodded, carefully transferring the neutralizing dish into sealed containers. The kitchen doors slid open, revealing Lieutenant Jake Torres and his security team. "We're ready to escort you, sir," Torres said, his hand resting on his holstered weapon. As they moved through the station's corridors, Mark couldn't help but notice the eerie quiet. The usual bustle of activity had been replaced by an unsettling stillness, broken only by the occasional distant shout or the sound of running feet. They reached the first distribution point, a large mess hall that had been hastily converted into a makeshift medical center. Affected Shindy sat or lay on cots, their usually stoic faces contorted with a mix of confusion and intense emotion. Mark began serving the neutralizing dish, explaining its purpose to each recipient. Most accepted it gratefully, their hands shaking slightly as they brought the spoons to their mouths. However, as they moved to the next distribution point, they encountered resistance. A group of young Shindy, led by a fiery-eyed female diplomat, blocked their path. "Stop!" she cried out, her voice ringing with passion. "We won't let you take this gift from us." Lieutenant Torres stepped forward, his hand moving to his weapon. "Stand down," he ordered. "We're here to help." The young diplomat, Lyra, stood her ground. "Help? You're trying to strip away our newfound understanding, our ability to truly connect with each other and with humans." Mark looked at her, seeing the raw emotion in her eyes. It was a stark contrast to the usual reserved demeanor of the Shindy he had encountered before. Before he could respond, a new voice boomed over the station's comm system. "Attention all personnel." Admiral Zorn's voice echoed, sounding unusually warm and enthusiastic. "I hereby declare that all Shindy have the right to choose whether or not to partake in the neutralizing treatment. Let us embrace this new chapter in our emotional evolution." Confusion rippled through both the human security team and the Shindy protesters. Lieutenant Torres tapped his comm badge urgently. "Commander Perry, we have a situation. Admiral Zorn's order is directly contradicting our mission." As Perry's voice crackled over the comm, issuing new instructions, Mark felt a sudden shift in the air. A familiar scent, both alluring and alarming, wafted through the corridor. Aria emerged from a nearby maintenance hatch, her eyes locked onto Mark with an intensity that made his breath catch. She moved with an otherworldly grace, her exoskeleton shimmering under the station's lights. "Mark," she breathed, her voice a mixture of relief and desperate need. Lieutenant Torres reacted quickly, positioning himself between Mark and Aria. "Ma'am, please stay back. You're not cleared for—" His words were cut short as a wave of pheromones washed over the group. Mark felt his heart racing, his senses heightening to an almost painful degree. He could see the security team and even some of the Shindy protesters swaying on their feet, overcome by the sudden onslaught of chemical signals. In the chaos that followed, Mark found himself being pulled into a nearby storage room, the door sliding shut behind him. Aria's hands were on his face, her eyes searching his. "I couldn't stay away," she whispered, her exoskeleton pulsing with an ethereal light. "Mark, I—" The sound of the door being sealed from the outside interrupted her. Lieutenant Torres's voice came through the comm panel. "Chef, Ambassador, I'm sorry, but I can't risk further contamination. Stay put until we can get this under control." Mark and Aria stood in the dimly lit room, the air thick with unspoken tension and the lingering scent of pheromones. Outside, they could hear the muffled sounds of argument and confusion as humans and Shindy grappled with the rapidly evolving situation. In the distance, alarms began to sound anew, signaling yet another development in the unfolding crisis. Mark and Aria exchanged a look of uncertainty, both aware that their actions had set in motion events that were quickly spiraling beyond anyone's control. As they stood in their enforced isolation, the fate of Harmony Station, and perhaps the future of human-Shindy relations hung in the balance, with Mark's culinary creation at the center of it all. As Mark and Aria stood in the dimly lit storage room, their eyes locked in a mixture of confusion and longing, an unexpected phenomenon began to unfold. A soft, ethereal glow emanated from their skin, visible even through their clothing. The bioluminescent light pulsed gently, casting a surreal ambience in the confined space. Mark, Arya whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "What's happening to us?" Before Mark could respond, the door hissed open, revealing Dr. Mercer and a medical team clad in protective gear. They moved swiftly, wielding specialized equipment. "We need blood samples from both of you," Dr. Mercer explained, his voice muffled by his containment suit. "This reaction, it's unprecedented." Mark and Arya complied, extending their arms as the medical team expertly collected the samples. The process was quick and efficient, leaving them alone once more in the storage room, their skin still emitting the mysterious glow. Meanwhile, in the command center, Commander Sarah Perry's brow furrowed as she received an urgent communication from Earth. The holographic image of a stern-faced government official flickered to life before her. "Commander Perry, we're dispatching a specialized team to your location," the official announced. "Dr. Olivia Winters and her group of xenobiologists and diplomats will arrive shortly. Their mission is to assess the situation and negotiate with the incoming Shindy fleet." Perry nodded, her mind racing with the implications. "Understood. Sir, we'll prepare for their arrival." As she ended the transmission, alarms blared throughout the station. Lieutenant Torres's voice crackled over the comm system. "Commander, we have a situation in the shuttle bay. Victor Reeves and his group have barricaded themselves in. They're threatening to release a concentrated form of the pheromone compound into the main ventilation system." Perry's eyes hardened. "Deploy additional security teams to the shuttle bay. Contain the situation, but use non-lethal methods only." She turned to Captain Hawkins, who stood nearby, his face a mask of unyielding commitment. "Captain, I need you to implement Contingency Plan Delta. Assemble your most trusted officers and prepare for a covert entry through the maintenance airlocks." Hawkins nodded sharply. "Consider it done, Commander." As Hawkins moved to carry out his orders, Perry's attention was drawn to a flashing alert on her console. The station's power grid was experiencing unexplained fluctuations. She quickly patched through to engineering. "What's going on down there?" she demanded. The chief engineer's harried voice came through. "Commander, we've traced the issue to a secondary environmental control system. It appears a group of young Shindy protesters have gained access and are altering the atmospheric composition." Perry's mind raced, connecting the dots. "They're trying to spread the pheromone effects. Get a team down there and regain control of those systems immediately." In the medical bay, Dr. Mercer hunched over a microscope, his eyes wide with excitement as he examined the blood samples from Mark and Arya. He quickly tapped his comm badge. "Commander Perry, you need to see this," he said, his voice brimming with barely held back enthusiasm. "The interaction between human and Shindy biochemistry has produced something entirely new. It's enhancing cognitive functions and physical capabilities in both species." Perry absorbed this information, feeling the weight of its potential impact. Before she could respond, another alert demanded her attention. A small transport ship was approaching the station. "Commander," the docking control officer reported, DR. "Olivia Winters and her team have arrived. They're requesting immediate clearance to dock." Perry took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. Grant them clearance and have them escorted directly to the main conference room. As if on cue, Admiral Zorn's face appeared on the main view screen. The Shindy leader's eyes were clearer now, though still tinged with an uncharacteristic warmth. "Commander Perry," he began, his voice steady, "I wish to make an announcement. I will voluntarily consume the neutralizing dish prepared by your chef. However, I propose we negotiate terms for continued cooperation in studying these remarkable pheromone effects." Perry nodded, a glimmer of hope sparking in her chest. "Understood, Admiral. We'll discuss this further once Dr. Winters and her team have been briefed." As she turned to leave the command center, Perry caught sight of the approaching Shindy fleet on the long-range sensors. Time was running short, and the fate of Harmony Station hung in the balance. With a determined stride, she made her way to the conference room, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With a determined stride, she made her way to the conference room, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As Perry entered the conference room, Dr. Olivia Winters and her team were already setting up their equipment. The air crackled with nervous energy as the specialists prepared for their assessment of the complex situation unfolding on Harmony Station. Suddenly, an urgent message from Dr. Mercer flashed across Perry's comm device. "Commander, you need to see this immediately. It's about Mark and Arya." Perry excused herself and hurried to a nearby monitor. The feed from the storage room where Mark and Arya were isolated showed an astonishing sight. The bioluminescent glow emanating from their bodies had intensified dramatically, visible even through the sealed door. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" Perry asked, her voice hushed. Dr. Mercer's excitement was palpable even through the comm link. "Their brain activity is off the charts, Commander. It's as if their neural patterns are synchronizing. We've never seen anything like this between a human and a Shindy before." Before Perry could respond, Dr. Winters appeared at her side, eyes wide with fascination. "This is extraordinary," she breathed. "Commander, I'd like to authorize a controlled experiment. We need to convert that storage room into an observation chamber immediately." Perry nodded, her mind racing with the potential implications. "Make it happen, Doctor, but ensure all safety protocols are in place." As the medical team sprang into action, transforming the storage room with advanced sensors and one-way mirrors, a new crisis erupted. Alarms blared throughout the station, and Lieutenant Torres's voice crackled over the comm system. "Commander, we have a severe malfunction in life support. The alterations made by the Shindy protesters are causing cascading failures in the environmental controls." Perry's mind focused. "Get engineering teams on it now. We need those systems stabilized yesterday." She turned to Captain Hawkins, who had just entered the command center. "Captain, implement contingency plan Delta. We need to secure the main power core and communications array." Hawkins nodded sharply and moved to assemble his team for the covert operation. Meanwhile, in the shuttle bay, the standoff with Victor Reeves and his group took a dangerous turn. Cornered and desperate, Reeves made a reckless decision. "You leave us no choice," he shouted, his voice tinged with a manic edge. "If you won't embrace our vision, we'll make you understand." With that, he activated a small device, releasing a concentrated burst of the pheromone compound into the local ventilation system. The effect on the surrounding security team was immediate and chaotic. Officers staggered, overwhelmed by sudden surges of emotion and heightened physical responses. Lieutenant Torres, struggling to maintain control, hid his comm badge. "Commander, Reeves has released a compound. The situation here is deteriorating rapidly." As Perry grappled with the escalating crises, a message from the Shindy flagship appeared on the main view screen. Admiral Vex's face filled the screen, his expression a mixture of confusion and concern. "Commander Perry," he began, his voice strained, "we received a transmission from one of our young diplomats on your station. It seems there's some disagreement among my crew about our next course of action. We will need to delay our approach while we address this internal matter." Perry felt a small surge of relief. This unexpected development bought them precious time to manage the chaos unfolding on the station. In the newly converted observation chamber, Mark and Arya stood motionless, their bodies pulsing with an otherworldly light. Dr. Mercer and his team watched in awe as the two began to move in perfect synchronization, their movements fluid and graceful. "Mark," Arya whispered, her voice eerily in tune with his, "I can feel your thoughts." "And I yours," Mark responded, their eyes locked in an intense gaze. "It's like we're one mind, They finished in unison. Dr. Winters, observing from behind the one-way mirror, turned to her colleagues with a look of wonder. We're witnessing something unprecedented here. The implications for human-Shindy relations could be enormous. As the scientists furiously documented the phenomenon, Commander Perry received another urgent communication. This time, it was from Earth's government. "Commander," the official began, his tone grave, "we've made the decision to release select information about the situation on Harmony Station to the public. We believe transparency is our best option at this point." Perry nodded, understanding the weight of this decision. "Understood. Sir, we'll prepare for the potential fallout." As she ended the transmission, Perry took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. The fate of Harmony Station, and perhaps the future of human-Shindy relations, hung in the balance. With crises erupting on multiple fronts and groundbreaking discoveries unfolding before her eyes, she knew that the next few hours would be critical. The station hummed with tension and possibility as humans, and Shindy alike waited to see how this unprecedented situation would unfold. In the observation chamber, Mark and Arya continued their strange, synchronized dance, a living symbol of the potential for understanding between their two species. Outside, in the corridors and control rooms of Harmony Station, the struggle to maintain order and find a path forward continued unabated. As Commander Perry made her way to the conference room, a blinding flash erupted from the observation chamber containing Mark and Arya. Alarms blared, and the station's sensors went haywire. Perry sprinted towards the chamber, her heart pounding. "What's happening?" she demanded, skidding to a halt in front of the observation window. Dr. Winters, already on the scene, stared wide-eyed at the spectacle before them. I've never seen anything like this," she breathed. As the light faded, gasps filled the room. Where Mark and Arya had stood separately moments ago, a single, extraordinary being now occupied the space. The creature before them was a mesmerizing blend of human and Shindy physiology, sleek, iridescent skin stretched over a form that was both familiar and alien. "Seal off this entire section," Perry ordered, her voice steady despite the shock. "No one in or out without my direct authorization." Dr. Winters nodded, quickly tapping commands into her datapad. "Commander, we need to study this. Hybrid immediately. The scientific implications are staggering." Perry's calm badge chirped. "Commander," Lieutenant Torres's voice crackled, "word of the incident is spreading through the station. Both humans and Shindy are demanding answers." "Understood," Perry replied, her mind racing. "I'm on my way to the command center. We need to get ahead of this." As Perry strode through the corridors, she could feel the tension in the air. Clusters of crew members huddled together, whispering urgently. She quickened her pace, knowing that every second counted. In the command center, Admiral Zorn's face filled the main view screen. His eyes, still holding that unusual warmth, locked onto Perry's. "Commander, we've received reports of an incident involving the human Mark and our diplomat Arya. I demand an explanation." Perry took a deep breath. "Admiral, what's happened is unprecedented. Mark and Arya have undergone a transformation. They've merged into a single being, a hybrid of our species." Zorn's expression flickered between disbelief and fascination. "This is extraordinary. Commander, I propose we form a joint research team to study this phenomenon. The potential benefits for both our peoples could be immeasurable." "I agree, Admiral," Perry nodded, seizing the opportunity. "In fact, I suggest we expand this cooperation. A joint human-Shindy initiative to study not just this hybrid being, but all the effects we've witnessed from this crisis." As they discussed the details, another alert flashed on Perry's console. It was a message from Earth's government, marked urgent. Perry's eyes widened as she read its contents. "Admiral," she said, looking up at the screen, I've just received word from Earth. They're proposing the creation of a joint human-Shindy research colony, with Harmony Station as its headquarters. Zorn's mandibles clicked in surprise. This is unexpected, but not unwelcome. Commander, I believe we have much to discuss. As Perry prepared to delve into negotiations, Dr. Mercer's voice came through her comm badge. Commander, you need to see this immediately. The hybrid. It's generating some kind of energy we've never encountered before. The readings suggest applications in FDL travel and advanced medicine. This could change everything. Perry's mind raced with the implications. She turned back to the view screen, where Admiral Zorn waited expectantly. Admiral, new developments are unfolding by the second. I suggest we convene an emergency summit to address these discoveries and chart a course forward. The fate of both our species may well depend on how we handle the next few hours. Zorn nodded solemnly. Agreed, Commander. I will inform the rest of the Shindy leadership immediately. As Perry ended the transmission, she became aware of a commotion outside the command center. The doors slid open, revealing a group of Shindy led by the young diplomat Lyra. Their eyes shone with an almost fervent light. Commander Perry. Lyra stepped forward, her voice ringing with conviction. We've come to offer our full support for cooperation between our peoples. What's happened to Mark and Arya? It's not a calamity, it's an opportunity. An opportunity for both our species to evolve, to grow beyond our limitations. Perry studied the group, noting the mix of commitment and hope on their faces. Your support is appreciated, Lyra. We'll need voices like yours in the discussions ahead. As Lyra began to respond, alarms blared once again. Lieutenant Torres's voice cut through the chaos. Commander, we've got a situation in the shuttle bay. Reeves and his group have overpowered security and hijacked a maintenance vessel. They're attempting to flee the station. Perry's mind focused. Deploy intercept teams immediately. Use the Horizon's targeting systems if necessary, but take them alive if possible. She turned back to Lyra and her group. It seems our challenges are far from finished, but together, we might just forge a new future from this crisis. As Perry prepared to face the next wave of crises, the hybrid being in the observation chamber stirred, its skin pulsing with that strange, new energy. Whatever came next, one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same for humans or Shindy again. As Perry prepared to face the next wave of crises, the hybrid being in the observation chamber stirred, its skin pulsing with that strange, new energy. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station, and the lights flickered ominously. Status report. Perry barked, rushing to the nearest console. Lieutenant Torres's voice crackled over the comm system, strained and urgent. Commander, we're experiencing massive power fluctuations across all systems. The source appears to be the observation chamber. Perry's eyes widened as she processed the information. Get a team down there immediately. We need to contain whatever's happening. As she spoke, the main view screen in the command center flickered to life, revealing Dr. Winter's face. The scientist's expression was a mix of excitement and concern. Commander, you need to see this, Dr. Winter said, her voice breathless. The energy output from the hybrid. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered. Our initial readings suggest properties similar to those theorized for stable wormhole creation. Perry felt her heart race at the implications. Are you saying we could be looking at a breakthrough in FDL travel? Potentially, yes, Dr. Winters nodded. But we need more time to study this phenomenon. And right now, it's causing havoc with the station systems. As if on cue, the lights in the command center dimmed and several consoles sparked ominously. Perry gritted her teeth, her mind racing through possible solutions. Lieutenant Torres, reroute all non-essential power to life support and stabilize the grid, she ordered. Dr. Winters, continue your analysis, but prioritize finding a way to contain that energy output. Just then, Admiral Zorn's face appeared on a secondary screen. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation in Shindy body language. "Commander Perry," he began, his voice tinged with a mix of concern and fascination, "our sensors have detected the energy surge on your station. What exactly is happening?" Perry took a deep breath, weighing her words carefully. "Admiral, we've made a potentially groundbreaking discovery. The hybrid being formed by Mark and Arya is generating an energy signature that could revolutionize interstellar travel. I propose we establish a joint human-Shindy research facility here on Harmony Station to study this phenomenon together." Zorn's eyes widened, and Perry could almost see the wheels turning in his mind. The empathy-enhancing effects of the neutralizing dish were still evident in his demeanor. A joint research facility. Zorn mused aloud. "Yes, I can see the potential benefits for both our species. Commander, I will support this proposal and use my influence to sway the other Shindy leaders." Perry felt a surge of hope at Zorn's words, but it was quickly tempered by the appearance of Admiral Vex on another screen. "This is unacceptable," Vex growled, his eyes narrowing. "We cannot allow such a potentially powerful being to remain under human control. I demand that the hybrid be transferred to a Shindy research vessel immediately." Perry's mind focused as she prepared to respond, but before she could, Lyra burst into the command center, her eyes wild with excitement. "Commander, I've done it!" she exclaimed. "I've made contact with a hybrid." All eyes turned to the young Shindy diplomat as she continued, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I managed to establish a telepathic link with them. It's not just a physical merger, Commander. Their minds, their experiences, they're completely intertwined. There's still Mark and Arya, but also something more." As Lyra spoke, Dr. Mercer's voice came through on the comm system. "Commander, I've been analyzing the data from Lyra's interaction. I believe we might be able to harness the hybrid's energy output to create a large-scale empathic field. This could allow for instantaneous communication and understanding between humans and Shindy across vast distances." The command center erupted into a flurry of activity as the implications of these revelations sank in. Perry's mind raced, trying to process the rapid-fire developments and formulate a plan. Captain Hawkins stepped forward, his expression grave but determined. "Commander, I have a proposal. We could use the Horizon as a mobile research platform. It would allow us to study the hybrid safely while addressing Admiral Vex's concerns about Shindy involvement." Perry nodded, seeing the potential in Hawkins' suggestion. She turned back to the screens, where Admiral Zorn and Vex waited expectantly. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice steady and resolute, "we stand at a crossroads. What we've discovered here could change everything, not just for humans and Shindy, but for all spacefaring civilizations. I propose we work together, pooling our resources and knowledge, to unlock the secrets of this hybrid being and the energy it produces." As Perry laid out her plan for a collaborative research effort, a new alert flashed on her console. She glanced down, her eyebrows raising in surprise. "It seems we have some unexpected guests," she announced to the room. "A delegation of Arturian observers has just arrived at the station. Their lead diplomat, Ambassador Zara, is requesting permission to join our negotiations." The command center fell silent as everyone absorbed this new development. The Arturians were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced diplomatic skills and their ability to mediate even the most complex interspecies conflicts. Perry took a deep breath, sensing that the next few moments could shape the future of galactic civilization. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of humans and Shindy alike, before turning back to the view screens. "Admirals, with your permission, I'd like to invite Ambassador Zara and her team to join our discussions." Their unique perspective could be invaluable as we navigate these uncharted waters. As Perry awaited their response, the hybrid being in the observation chamber pulsed with another wave of energy, sending ripples of possibility throughout the station and beyond the station and into the vastness of space. Commander Perry felt a shudder run through the deck beneath her feet, and she knew instinctively that something had changed. Commander, Dr. Winter's voice crackled over the comm, urgency evident in her tone. The hybrid's energy signature has intensified dramatically. We're seeing fluctuations in gravity and life support across the station. Perry's eyes widened as she processed this new information. Dr. Winters, what's causing this sudden change? We're not entirely sure, the scientist replied, her voice strained. But our readings indicate that the merged form of Mark and Arya is becoming increasingly unstable. If this continues, we risk catastrophic damage to the station and potential harm to the couple themselves. As if to underscore Dr. Winter's words, the lights in the command center flickered ominously. Perry gripped the edge of her console, steadying herself as she felt the artificial gravity waver. Chief Rodriguez, status report on station systems, Perry commanded, her voice calm despite the growing crisis. The chief engineer's response came through, infused with static. Commander, the energy waves from the hybrid are resonating with our power systems. Structural integrity is down to 78% and falling. If we don't stabilize this soon, we may need to consider evacuation procedures. Perry's mind raced, weighing options and potential outcomes. She turned to the view screens where Admiral Zorn and Vex still waited, their expressions a mix of concern and barely concealed interest. Gentlemen, Perry began, her voice steady, we have a developing situation. The hybrid being is generating energy waves that are threatening the stability of Harmony Station. I propose an immediate joint human-Shindy effort to safely separate Mark and Arya. Admiral Zorn's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed the information. Commander Perry, your proposal has merit. This could indeed serve as a foundation for future cooperation between our species. Before Perry could respond, Admiral Vex cut in, his eyes narrowing. If separation is necessary, it must be conducted on the Shindy flagship. Our medical facilities are far more advanced and could preserve more of the hybrid's unique properties. Perry felt her eyes sharpen at Vex's demand, recognizing the political maneuvering behind it. Before she could formulate a response, another violent tremor shook the station. Commander, Chief Rodriguez's voice came through, panic evident. Structural integrity is now at 65% and dropping rapidly. We need to act fast. Captain Hawkins stepped forward, his expression grim. Commander, I've ordered the Horizon to dock with Harmony Station. We're preparing for a possible emergency transfer of personnel and equipment, including the hybrid being. Perry nodded, grateful for Hawkins' foresight. She turned back to the view screens, ready to address the admirals, when Lyra suddenly gasped, her eyes going wide. Commander, the young Shindy diplomat said, her voice trembling, I can feel them. Mark and Arya. Their merged consciousness. It's reaching out. Perry watched as Lyra's eyes unfocused, her body swaying slightly as she appeared to listen to something only she could hear. After a moment, Lyra blinked rapidly, her gaze refocusing on the room. They're in pain, Lyra said softly. The merge. It can't be sustained, but I think I know how we can separate them safely. Before Perry could question Lyra further, Dr. Mercer's voice came through the comm system. Commander, I've made a breakthrough. We've identified a specific frequency that could stabilize the energy field long enough for a safe separation. The problem is, we don't have the power source or equipment to generate it. As Perry processed this new information, a new voice entered the conversation. Perhaps we can be of assistance. All eyes turned to the view screen, where Ambassador Zara of the Arcturian delegation had appeared. The ambassador's iridescent skin shimmered as she spoke. "Our observation ship is equipped with a prototype resonance generator," Zara explained. "It's capable of producing the frequency Dr. Mercer described. We offer our assistance in the separation procedure, with the condition that we be allowed to study the process and its outcomes." Perry felt a glimmer of hope at this unexpected offer, but she could see Admiral Vec's expression darkening at the prospect of outside interference. Before she could respond, another violent tremor shook the station, more severe than any before. The lights in the command center went out, plunging the room into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered to life, casting an eerie red glow over the assembled faces. "Commander," Chief Rodriguez's voice came through, filled with urgency. "We've lost main power. Emergency systems are holding for now, but we're running out of time." Perry knew she had to act fast. The fate of Mark and Arya, the station, and possibly the future of human-Shindy relations hung in the balance. She opened her mouth to give the order, when a new alert flashed on her console. "Security breach in detention level," the computer's voice announced calmly. "Multiple prisoners have escaped custody." Perry's blood ran cold as she realized the implications. Victor Reeves and his human supremacist group were loose on the station, and in the chaos of the power outage, they would be heading straight for the hybrid being. With threats converging from all sides and time slipping away, Perry steeled herself to make the most critical decision of her career. The next few moments would determine not just the fate of Harmony Station, but potentially the course of interstellar relations for years to come. The lives of Mark and Arya, the stability of human-Shindy relations, and the fate of Harmony Station itself all hung in the balance. "Implement emergency containment protocols," Perry ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos of the command center. "Dr. Winters, initiate your stabilization plan immediately." As if in response to her command, the deck beneath their feet steadied. The violent tremor subsided to a low vibration as Dr. Winters' voice came through the comm system, breathless but determined. "Commander, we're activating the Arcturian resonance generator now. Stand by for energy field stabilization." Perry watched the main view screen as a shimmering dome of energy enveloped the observation chamber. The hybrid being's pulsing aura flickered and then settled into a steady glow. "Energy output stabilizing," Dr. Winters reported. "The containment field is holding, but I don't know for how long. We need to move quickly on the separation procedure." Perry nodded, turning to Captain Hawkins. "Captain, begin evacuation procedures. Transfer all non-essential personnel to the horizon. We need to minimize potential casualties if things go south." Hawkins saluted sharply. "Understood, Commander. We'll begin immediately." As Hawkins moved to carry out her orders, Perry addressed the assembled admirals and the Arcturian ambassador on the displays. "Gentlemen, Ambassador Zara, we have a narrow window of opportunity here. I propose we pool our resources and expertise to safely separate Mark and Arya while studying this unprecedented phenomenon." Admiral Zorn's mandibles clicked rapidly as he considered her words. "Agreed, Commander. I believe I may be able to assist further. With your permission, I'd like to attempt a mental connection with the hybrid being." Perry raised an eyebrow but nodded her assent. "Proceed, Admiral, but exercise caution. We don't know the full extent of their capabilities." As Zorn closed his eyes, focusing his enhanced empathic abilities, Dr. Mercer's voice came through the comm system. "Commander, I've been analyzing the data from the hybrid's energy signature. I don't think a complete separation is possible without causing severe psychological trauma to both Mark and Arya. We might need to consider a partial separation, maintaining a psychic link between them." Perry frowned, considering the implications of Dr. Mercer's proposal. Before she could respond, Zorn's eyes snapped open, his expression a mix of awe and concern. "Commander, I've made contact. Their consciousness. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. They exist as one entity now, yet retain their individual essences. Separating them completely could be catastrophic." As Perry processed this new information, alarms blared throughout the command center. Chief Rodriguez's panicked voice came through the comm system. "Commander, we've got multiple security breaches on the detention level. Reeves and his group have escaped." Perry's blood ran cold. She opened her mouth to issue orders when another tremor shook the station, more violent than before. The lights flickered ominously as the deck plates groaned under the strain. "Status report," Perry barked, gripping her console for support. "The hybrid's energy output is spiking again," Dr. Winters reported, her voice tight with tension. "The Arcturian resonance generator is overloading. We can't maintain the containment field much longer." As if to underscore the doctor's words, a series of explosions rocked the station. Smoke began to fill the corridors as emergency klaxons wailed. "Commander," Chief Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. "We're losing structural integrity. I've rerouted power from life support to reinforce the containment field, but it's a temporary fix at best." Perry's mind raced, trying to juggle the multiple crises unfolding around her. The escaped prisoners, the failing containment field, the evacuation efforts, each demanded her immediate attention. Before she could issue her next order, Lyra stumbled forward, her eyes wide and unfocused. "Commander," she gasped, "I can feel them. Mark and Arya. They're changing, evolving. The energy. It's creating something new." As if in response to Lyra's words, a blinding flash of light erupted from the observation chamber. When it faded, Perry stared in disbelief at the readings on her console. "Dr. Winters," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "are you seeing this?" "Affirmative, Commander," Winters replied, awe evident in her tone. "The hybrid being. They've generated a stable micro-wormhole within the chamber. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before." The command center fell silent as the implications of this development sank in. The silence was shattered by the sound of weapons fire echoing through the corridors. "Commander," Captain Hawkins' voice came through, punctuated by the sound of energy blasts. "Reeves and his group are making a push for the observation chamber. We're trying to hold them back, but we're outnumbered." Perry's teeth clenched as she surveyed the chaos unfolding around her. The fate of Mark and Arya, the future of human-Shindy relations, and the very existence of Harmony Station all hung in the balance. She knew that her next decision would shape the course of events for years to come. Taking a deep breath, Perry squared her shoulders and faced her team. "All right, people, this is what we're going to do." This is what we're going to do," Perry said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Dr. Winters, proceed with the separation procedure immediately. The micro-wormhole poses too great a risk if left unchecked." "Commander, are you sure?" Dr. Winters' voice crackled through the comm. "The station's integrity is already compromised," Perry finished. "We don't have a choice. Begin now." As if in response to her command, the station shuddered violently. Emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the command center. "Chief Rodriguez," Perry called out, "we need every ounce of power you can give us. Reroute from non-essential systems if you have to." Rodriguez's fingers flew across his console. "On it, Commander. Implementing emergency power distribution now." Throughout Harmony Station, lights dimmed and systems shut down as energy was diverted to the critical separation procedure. In the corridors, confused and frightened crew members found themselves plunged into darkness. In the observation chamber, Dr. Winters and her team worked feverishly, their faces illuminated by the pulsing glow of the hybrid being. The micro wormhole at its center writhed and twisted, threatening to expand beyond their control. Energy levels are spiking, one of Winter's assistants called out. The wormhole is becoming unstable. Winters gritted her teeth, her eyes never leaving her instruments. Adjust the containment field. We need to channel that excess energy somewhere. As if in answer to her words, the wormhole suddenly expanded, filling the entire chamber with swirling, otherworldly light. Winter's eyes widened as she studied the readings. "Commander," she called out, her voice tinged with both excitement and fear. "The wormhole. It's stabilizing. We might be able to use it as a conduit for the excess energy from the separation process." Before Perry could respond, the sound of weapons fire echoed through the comm system. Captain Hawkins' voice came through, punctuated by the staccato rhythm of energy blasts. "Commander, Reeves and his group have breached the outer defenses. We're engaging them outside the observation chamber, but we're outnumbered." Perry's eyes hardened. "Hold the line, Captain. We can't let them interfere with procedure." On the console, Admiral Zorn's face was a mask of concentration, his eyes closed as he maintained his psychic link with the hybrid being. "Commander," he said, his voice strained, "I can feel them. Mark and Arya. They're struggling. The separation is causing them pain." Perry felt a pang of guilt, but she pushed it aside. There was no turning back now. "Dr. Winter's status report," she demanded. "The separation is progressing," Winters replied. "But the energy levels are off the charts. If we can't find a way to stabilize them soon." Her words were cut off as another violent tremor shook the station. In the corridors outside the observation chamber, the battle between Reeves' group and the joint Human-Shindy security forces raged on. The unstable gravity fields caused by the energy fluctuations sent combatants floating weightlessly one moment, only to come crashing down the next. Suddenly, Lyra stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the console, showing the roiling energy within the observation chamber. "Commander," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I can help them. Let me enter the chamber." Perry stared at the young Shindy diplomat in disbelief. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous." Lyra turned to face her, grit etched across her features. "My telepathic abilities. I can use them to guide Mark and Arya through the separation. It might be our only chance." Perry hesitated, weighing the risks against their increasingly desperate situation. Finally, she nodded. "Do it, but be careful." As Lyra made her way to the observation chamber, protected only by a thin energy shield, Perry watched the security feeds with growing concern. Reeves and his followers were getting closer to breaching the final defenses. Inside the chamber, Lyra approached the swirling mass of energy that was once Mark and Arya. She reached out, her hand trembling as it made contact with the pulsing aura. Instantly, she was enveloped in a cocoon of blinding light. "Energy levels are stabilizing," Dr. Winters reported, her voice filled with awe. "The wormhole. It's becoming a conduit. Lyra's actually channeling the excess energy." On the console, the hybrid form began to separate visibly. Two distinct shapes emerged from the swirling energy, still connected by tendrils of light. Even the sounds of battle outside the chamber seemed to quiet as both human and Shindy forces paused to witness the extraordinary sight. As the separation neared completion, Dr. Winter's voice cut through the awed silence. "Wait. Something's wrong. The psychic bond between them is too strong. If we force a complete separation now, it could cause severe trauma to both of them." Perry's mind raced, searching for a solution. "Doctor, is there any way to maintain a partial link between them?" Winters was silent for a moment, then gasped. "The wormhole, we could use it to maintain a low-level psychic connection between Mark and Arya. It's risky, but it might be our only option. Do it, Perry ordered. As the modified procedure concluded, the energy in the chamber began to coalesce. Two distinct forms emerged, Mark and Arya, separate yet still connected by a faint tendril of energy. Lyra collapsed to the floor, exhausted but alive. The immediate crisis had passed, but Perry knew that the repercussions of what had transpired on Harmony Station would be felt for years to come. As she ordered a station-wide stand-down, her mind was already racing with the implications of what they had witnessed and what challenges lay ahead. In the observation chamber, Mark and Arya stood side by side, their hands intertwined. The faint glow of their psychic link a visible reminder of their unique bond. As Perry watched them on the screen, she couldn't help but wonder, what would this mean for the future of human-Shindy relations? And what other secrets did that micro-wormhole hold? The battle was over, but a new chapter in interstellar relations was just beginning. The battle was over, but a new chapter in interstellar relations was just unfolding. In the days that followed, an uneasy calm settled over Harmony Station. The chaos of the separation procedure gave way to a buzz of scientific curiosity and diplomatic maneuvering. Commander Sarah Perry found herself at the center of a storm of activity, coordinating efforts to understand and manage the unprecedented situation. Dr. Olivia Winters wasted no time in establishing a joint human-Shindy research team. The observation chamber, once a site of near catastrophe, now hummed with the energy of scientific discovery. Winters and her colleagues pored over data, their eyes alight with excitement as they studied the visible energy tendril connecting Mark and Arya. Fascinating, Winters murmured, adjusting a holographic display. The psychic link appears to be self-sustaining, drawing minute amounts of energy from the micro-wormhole. Her Shindy counterpart, Dr. Zoll, nodded in agreement. The implications are staggering. This could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies communication. As the scientists worked, Mark and Arya underwent a series of tests and evaluations. The bond between them was unlike anything previously encountered, and its effects were becoming increasingly apparent. During one session, Mark suddenly jerked back, his eyes wide. I can taste cilantro," he said, bewildered. "But I'm not eating anything." Arya, seated across the room, lowered the fork she'd been holding. "I am," she said softly. "I'm eating a salad with cilantro dressing." Dr. Winters leaned forward, her interest piqued. "You're sharing sensory experiences? Can you describe it in more detail?" As Mark and Arya explored the extent of their connection, Commander Perry grappled with the diplomatic ramifications. She organized a series of carefully controlled public appearances, hoping to showcase the positive aspects of human-Shindy cooperation. The first event was held in Harmony Station's main atrium. As Mark and Arya entered, hand in hand, the assembled crowd fell silent. The faint glow of their psychic link was visible even from a distance, eliciting gasps of wonder. Perry stepped forward, her voice carrying across the atrium. "What you see before you is not just a scientific marvel, but a symbol of what we can achieve together. Human and Shindy, united in a bond deeper than we ever thought possible." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some applauded, while others murmured uneasily. Perry noticed a group of Shindy diplomats exchanging concerned glances and made a mental note to address their reservations privately. As the days passed, the strain of constant public scrutiny began to take its toll on Mark and Arya. After one particularly grueling press conference, Mark retreated to his quarters, his head pounding. Arya followed, her concern palpable through their link. "You're in pain," she said, not a question but a statement of fact. Mark nodded wearily. "It's just a lot. Everyone watching us, studying us. Sometimes I feel like we're not people anymore, just some kind of science experiment." Arya took his hand, her touch sending a wave of comfort through their bond. "I know, but what we're doing is important. We're showing that humans and Shindy can coexist, can even be more. Their moment of quiet was interrupted by an urgent comm message from Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez. Commander Perry, I need you in the observation chamber immediately. There's something you need to see. Perry arrived to find Rodriguez staring intently at a console, his forehead creased with concentration. What is it, Chief? Rodriguez pointed to a series of fluctuating energy readings. The micro-wormhole, Commander. It's pulsing. These energy spikes suggest it's connected to another location in space-time. Perry's eyes widened as she processed the implications. Are you saying we have a potential gateway to where? Another part of the galaxy? Another time? Unknown, Commander, Rodriguez replied. But whatever it is, it's stable and recurring. We need to study this further. Perry nodded, her mind already racing with the potential risks and rewards. Agreed. I want a permanent research outpost established around the chamber. And, Chief, double the security protocols. We can't risk unauthorized access to whatever this is. As Perry left to make the necessary arrangements, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the brink of something monumental. The separation of Mark and Arya had been just the beginning. Now, with a potential gateway to the unknown pulsing in the heart of Harmony Station, the true adventure was only just beginning. In her office, Perry found a message waiting from Admiral Zorn. The Admiral's face looked drawn and tired, but his eyes burned with intensity as he outlined his proposal for a new diplomatic corps. We need individuals who can bridge the gap between human and Shindy minds, Zorn explained. People trained to use the insights we've gained from Mark and Arya's experience. Perry listened intently, recognizing the potential of such a program. As she began to draft a response, another alert caught her attention. A delegation of Arturian scientists had just requested permission to dock at Harmony Station, bringing with them advanced sensory equipment to study the human-Shindy bond. The commander leaned back in her chair, feeling the weight of command settle on her shoulders. The situation was growing more complex by the hour, with new players entering the field and the stakes rising ever higher. As she prepared to welcome the Arturian delegation, Perry couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the universe had in store for Harmony Station and its unique inhabitants. As Perry prepared to welcome the Arturian delegation, a new alert flashed across her console. It was from Dr. Mercer, the station's lead geneticist. Commander, I need you in the medical bay immediately. Dr. Mercer's voice crackled through the comm. It's about Mark and Arya. We've discovered something unprecedented. Perry's brow furrowed as she made her way to the medical bay. When she arrived, she found Dr. Mercer hunched over a holographic display, his face a mix of excitement and concern. Commander, look at this, he said, gesturing to the swirling strands of DNA on the screen. The energy tendril connecting Mark and Arya isn't just maintaining their psychic link. It's altering their genetic makeup. Perry leaned in, her eyes widening as she processed the implications. Altering? How? Their DNA is converging, Dr. Mercer explained, highlighting specific sections of the genetic code. Human and Shindy genetic markers are slowly merging, creating entirely new hybrid sequences. As if on cue, Mark and Arya entered the medical bay, their linked hands glowing faintly. Perry noticed something different about them. Mark's skin had a slight sheen to it, almost like the beginning of Shindy exoskeleton, while Arya's features seemed softer, more human-like. How do you two feel? Perry asked, studying them closely. Mark flexed his free hand, watching as the light played off his slightly altered skin. Different, he said, but not in a bad way. It's like we're becoming something new. Arya nodded, her eyes meeting Mark's. We can sense each other more clearly now. It's as if the boundary between us is blurring. Dr. Mercer cleared his throat. Commander, I recommend we establish a dedicated research team to monitor their transformation. We're in uncharted territory here." Perry nodded, her mind already racing with the potential consequences. "Agreed, and we need to keep this under wraps for now. The last thing we need is panic spreading through the station." But as Perry would soon discover, secrets had a way of getting out on Harmony Station. Within days, rumors of Mark and Aria's transformation began to circulate. The station's communal areas buzzed with speculation and debate. In the hydroponics bay, a group of human botanists huddled together, their voices low but intense. "I heard they're turning into some kind of super beings," one whispered. "Imagine what that could mean for humanity." Nearby, a Shindy maintenance worker's antennae twitched as he overheard the conversation. "Or for the Shindy," he muttered to himself, his mandibles clicking nervously. The tension came to a head in the station's main promenade. A small group of human and Shindy extremists had gathered, their faces twisted with anger and fear. "This is an abomination," a human protester shouted, waving a hastily made sign. "We can't let them contaminate our gene pool." A Shindy counter-protester chittered in response. "Your narrow-mindedness will hold us all back. This could be the key to true unity between our species." As the shouting escalated, Captain Eli Hawkins arrived with a mixed team of human and Shindy security officers. "Break it up now," he ordered, his voice cutting through the din. "Any further disturbances will result in confinement to quarters." The crowd dispersed, but the undercurrent of unease remained. Hawkins activated his comm link. "Commander Perry, we need to address the situation. The whole station is on edge." In her office, Perry sighed, rubbing her temples. "Understood, Captain. Implement stricter security measures. I want mixed human-Shindy patrols on every deck." As Hawkins set about organizing the new security protocols, Perry turned her attention to the Arcturian research team. They had been observing the developments with keen interest and had just submitted a proposal that made Perry's head spin. "A controlled habitat?" she asked, looking at the lead Arcturian scientist, Dr. Zax. The Arcturian's large, multifaceted eyes blinked slowly. "Yes, Commander. A space where Mark and Aria can explore their evolving abilities without external interference. It would allow us to study the full extent of their transformation in a safe, controlled environment." Perry weighed the proposal carefully. The scientific potential was immense, but so were the risks. After a long moment, she nodded. "Approved, but I want round-the-clock monitoring and the ability to shut it down at a moment's notice if things go sideways." As preparations for the habitat began, Mark and Aria found themselves spending more time in isolation. The stares and whispers that followed them through the station's corridors had become too much to bear. In their quarters, Mark examined his reflection, tracing the patches of exoskeleton that had begun to form on his arms. "Do you ever wonder," he asked Aria, "if we're losing ourselves in this process?" Aria moved behind him, her now more human-like hand intertwining with his. Through their bond, he felt her mixture of uncertainty and excitement. "I think," she said slowly, "we're becoming something entirely new. Neither human nor Shindy, but both. And more." Their moment of reflection was interrupted by an alert from the station security system. In the habitat construction zone, sensors had detected an unauthorized presence. Captain Hawkins' voice came through the comm system, tense and urgent. "Security teams to Deck 7, Section C. We have intruders attempting to sabotage the habitat construction. This is not a drill." As alarms blared throughout the station, Perry realized that the delicate balance they had been maintaining was about to be tested like never before. The transformation of Mark and Aria was no longer just a scientific curiosity or a diplomatic challenge. It had become a flashpoint that threatened to tear Harmony Station apart. As alarms blared and security teams rushed to confront the intruders, a new crisis was brewing in the heart of Harmony Station. Mark and Arya, isolated in their quarters, felt a sudden surge of energy course through their bond. Mark gasped, his eyes widening as he felt an unfamiliar sensation ripple across his skin. Arya steadied him, her touch sending waves of concern and curiosity through their link. "What's happening?" Mark whispered, staring at his hands in disbelief. Before Arya could respond, the air between them shimmered and distorted. A small, swirling vortex of energy materialized, hanging suspended in the air like a miniature galaxy. The couple stared in awe as the implications of what they were seeing sank in. "Is that a wormhole?" Arya asked, her voice barely audible over the distant alarms. Mark reached out tentatively, his fingers brushing the edge of the spatial anomaly. The wormhole pulsed in response, expanding slightly before collapsing in on itself and vanishing. The comm system in their quarters crackled to life. "Mark, Arya, report to the medical bay immediately," Commander Perry's voice ordered, tension evident in her tone. As they made their way through the corridors, they could feel the eyes of passing crew members upon them. Whispers followed in their wake, a mix of fear and fascination. The transformation of their bodies had become impossible to hide, and now, with this new development, the stakes had risen even higher. In the medical bay, they found Commander Perry in deep discussion with Dr. Mercer and Chief Engineer Rodriguez. The three looked up as Mark and Arya entered, their expressions a mix of concern and nearly unleashed excitement. "We detected an energy surge in your quarters," Rodriguez said without preamble. "Can you tell us what happened?" Mark and Arya exchanged glances, their linked hands glowing faintly. "We created a wormhole," Mark said, his voice steady despite the enormity of the statement. The room fell silent for a moment as the implications sank in. Commander Perry was the first to recover, her years of command experience kicking in. "Dr. Mercer, I want a full medical evaluation of both of them." Rodriguez, "Analyze every scrap of data we have on that energy surge. We need to understand exactly what's happening and what it means for station security." As the medical team swarmed around them, attaching sensors and taking readings, Mark and Arya found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Dr. Olivia Winters burst into the medical bay, her eyes alight with scientific fervor. "Commander, we need to expand our research program immediately," she said, barely containing her excitement. The ability to create localized wormholes could revolutionize interstellar travel. "We need a dedicated team working on this around the clock." Perry nodded, her mind already racing with the potential consequences. "Agreed, but with strict oversight. We can't risk this technology falling into the wrong hands." As if on cue, the station's communication system crackled with static. The view screens around the medical bay flickered, displaying fragmented data and corrupted images. Chief Engineer Rodriguez cursed under his breath, his fingers flying over a console. "We're under cyber attack," he reported grimly. "Someone's trying to breach our firewalls and access our research data." Perry's expression hardened. "Lock down all sensitive information. Implement security protocol Omega-3. And get me a secure line to Starfleet Command. They need to know what's happening here." As Rodriguez worked to repel the cyber attack, Dr. Mercer approached Perry with a worried look. "Commander, I'm concerned about the rate of Mark and Arya's transformation. The energy readings we're getting from them are off the charts. We need to consider halting the experiments before things get out of control." Perry rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of command bearing down on her. The situation was escalating rapidly, with potential consequences that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. "Doctor, I understand your concerns, but we can't simply put this genie back in the bottle. We need to push forward, but with caution, double the medical monitoring on Mark and Arya, and set up a dedicated research team to work on safeguards and fail-safes." As the medical bay buzzed with activity, Mark and Arya sat quietly on a biobed, their hands intertwined. Through their bond, they could sense each other's mix of excitement and trepidation. "What do you think this means for us?" Arya asked softly, her now more human-like features creased with concern. Mark squeezed her hand, feeling the slight roughness of his newly formed exoskeleton against her skin. "I don't know," he admitted, "but whatever happens, we're in this together." Outside the medical bay, the corridors of Harmony Station were alive with rumors and speculation. The news of Mark and Arya's ability to create wormholes spread like wildfire, despite official attempts to keep it under wraps. In the hydroponics bay, a group of Shindy workers huddled together, their antennae twitching nervously. "I heard they can open portals to anywhere in the galaxy," one whispered. "Imagine what that could mean for our people." In the station's main promenade, a heated debate was brewing between a group of human scientists and Shindy diplomats. The air was thick with tension as they argued over the potential applications and dangers of the new technology. As night fell on Harmony Station, Commander Perry stood in her office, gazing out at the stars. The station's lights reflected off the viewport, creating the illusion of a vast, glittering web spread out before her. She couldn't help but feel that they stood on the precipice of a new era, one that could bring either unprecedented progress or unimaginable chaos. Her calm badge chirped, interrupting her reverie. "Commander," Captain Hawkins' voice came through, "we've just received word. The Zeta Reticulan delegation is requesting permission to dock. They say they have a proposal regarding the wormhole technology." Perry took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. "Understood, Captain. Prepare to receive them. It seems our adventure is just beginning." As she turned away from the viewport, Perry's gaze fell on a hollow image of Earth, rotating slowly on her desk. She couldn't help but wonder how the events unfolding on Harmony Station would reshape not just human-Shindy relations, but the very future of interstellar civilization itself. As Perry turned away from the hollow image of Earth, her calm badge chirped again. "Commander," Captain Hawkins' voice came through, urgency clear in his tone. "We have a situation in the research sector. The experiment with Mark and Arya's wormhole creation abilities has escalated." Perry's eyes widened. She had approved a controlled experiment to explore their abilities, hoping it would ease the mounting tensions on the station. Now, it seemed that decision had backfired spectacularly. "I'm on my way," she responded, already striding towards the door. The corridors of Harmony Station were a blur of activity as Perry made her way to the newly constructed laboratory adjacent to Mark and Arya's habitat. Crew members and civilians alike moved with purpose, their faces etched with concern. As she approached the lab, Perry could feel a faint vibration through the deck plating. The air seemed to crackle with an unseen energy. Dr. Olivia Winters met her at the entrance, her usual excitement replaced by barely controlled panic. "Commander, you need to see this," Winters said, leading Perry into the lab. The sight that greeted Perry took her breath away. In the center of the room, a small but stable wormhole hung suspended in midair, its edges shimmering with otherworldly light. Mark and Arya stood on either side, their bodies glowing faintly, connected by a pulsating tendril of energy. Dr. Mercer approached, his medical tricorder beeping rapidly. "Their vital signs are off the charts, Commander. I've never seen anything like it." Before Perry could respond, Mark and Arya suddenly stiffened, their eyes going wide. The energy tendril between them flared brightly, and both collapsed to the ground, still connected. "Medical team to the lab now," Perry shouted, rushing to their side. As the medical team swarmed around the unconscious couple, Chief Engineer Rodriguez burst into the lab, his face pale. "Commander, we've got a problem. The wormhole is destabilizing. I'm detecting a dangerous buildup of exotic particles around the event horizon." Perry looked up from Mark and Arya to see the small wormhole beginning to fluctuate wildly. Its edges pulsed and stretched, threatening to break free of its containment field. "Initiate emergency containment procedures," Perry ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. Rodriguez nodded, his fingers flying over a nearby console. Warning klaxons began to blare throughout the station as the containment field struggled to hold the expanding wormhole. "It's not working," Rodriguez shouted over the alarms. "The wormhole is growing too fast. We need to evacuate the sector." Perry tapped her comm badge. "Captain Hawkins, initiate immediate evacuation of the research sector. All non-essential personnel are to report to designated safe zones." As the evacuation order echoed through the station's comm system, Perry turned to Dr. Winters. "What happened? They were supposed to create a small, controlled wormhole." Winters shook her head, her eyes fixed on the unconscious forms of Mark and Arya. "They did, at first, but then something changed. It was like they tapped into some greater power source. Before we could stop them, the wormhole began to grow." The deck beneath their feet shuddered as the expanding wormhole began to affect the station's power grid. Lights flickered, and nearby consoles sparked and died. "We need to move them," Dr. Mercer said, gesturing to Mark and Arya. "It's not safe here." As the medical team carefully lifted the still-connected couple onto anti-grav gurneys, Perry's comm badge chirped again. "Commander," Captain Hawkins' voice came through, strained and urgent. "We've got another problem. Security reports intruders in the habitat section. They're heading for Mark and Arya's quarters." Perry's blood ran cold, with the station in chaos from the evacuation and the growing wormhole crisis. Someone had seized the opportunity to strike, and she had a sinking feeling she knew who was behind it. "Lock down the habitat section," Perry ordered. "Divert all available security personnel to protect Mark and Arya. We're moving them to the medical bay now." As they rushed through the corridors, pushing the gurneys carrying Mark and Arya, Perry could hear the distant sounds of struggle. Shouts and the unmistakable whine of energy weapons echoed through the station. They rounded a corner to find a group of Shindy and human volunteers forming a defensive line, led by Lyra. Her antenna twitched as she sensed their approach. "Commander," Lyra called out, her voice tight with tension. "Victor Reeves and his followers are trying to breach the habitat. We're holding them off, but we need reinforcements." Perry nodded grimly. "Keep them back. We need to get Mark and Arya to safety." As they pushed past the makeshift barricade, Perry could see the tenacity in the eyes of the defenders. Humans and Shindy working side by side, united in their goal to protect the couple who represented a new future for both their species. The medical bay doors hissed open, and they rushed inside. As Dr. Mercer and his team began hooking Mark and Arya up to various monitoring devices, Perry turned to face the view screen on the far wall. The image it displayed made her heart sink. The research sector was now visibly distorted, spatial anomalies rippling through the corridors. And at the center of it all, the original wormhole continued to grow, its tendrils reaching out like a hungry beast. Perry took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. The fate of Harmony Station, and perhaps the future of human-Shindy relations, now hung in the balance. And as the alarms continued to blare and the deck trembled beneath her feet, she knew that the true test of her leadership was only just beginning. The medical bay doors slid shut, sealing them off from the chaos engulfing the station. Perry turned to Dr. Mercer, her expression grim. "Status report on Mark and Arya." Before the doctor could respond, a low-frequency hum filled the air, causing the medical equipment to vibrate. Mark and Arya's eyes snapped open simultaneously, glowing with an otherworldly light. "By the stars," Dr. Mercer breathed, rushing to their side. His tricorder whirred frantically as he scanned the couple. "Commander, their neural activity is off the charts." It's like nothing I've ever seen. The hum intensified, resonating throughout the station. Perry felt the deck plates shudder beneath her feet as the artificial gravity fluctuated. She tapped her comm badge. Engineering report. Chief Rodriguez's voice crackled through, strained and urgent. Commander, we're detecting minor gravitational anomalies throughout the station. They seem to be originating from the medical bay. As if on cue, a shimmering distortion appeared between Mark and Arya. Dr. Winters, who had just entered the medical bay with a team of human and Shindy scientists, gasped in astonishment. "It's a microscopic wormhole," she exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. "They're generating it between their bodies." Perry watched in stunned silence as Mark and Arya's forms blurred slightly, the energy tendril connecting them pulsating with increased intensity. Through the transparent aluminum windows of the medical bay, she could see crew members and civilians alike stopping to stare, their faces a mix of wonder and apprehension. Dr. Mercer's voice cut through her thoughts. "Commander, their physiological changes are accelerating. Their genetic structures are merging. I've never seen anything like it." Before Perry could respond, her comm badge chirped again. Captain Hawkins' voice came through, tight with tension. "Commander, we've got a situation. Protests are breaking out across the station. A group of human purists is demanding we separate Mark from Arya. And there's a faction of Shindy calling for Arya to be taken into protective custody." Perry's mind raced, calculating potential outcomes and necessary actions. "Captain, implement heightened security measures. Deploy mixed teams of human and Shindy personnel to key areas. We can't let this situation spiral out of control." As Hawkins acknowledged the order, Dr. Winters approached Perry, her face flushed with excitement. "Commander, the Arcturian research team has made a breakthrough. They believe Mark and Arya's bond extends to the quantum level. Separating them could have catastrophic consequences." The implications of this revelation hit Perry like a physical blow. She opened her mouth to respond, but was interrupted by a commotion at the medical bay entrance. Ambassador Marcus Reeves strode in, his face a mask of willpower. "Commander Perry," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "I have a proposal to put before the summit. We should allow Mark and Arya to complete their transformation under controlled conditions. It's our best chance to understand what's happening and potentially harness this new power." Before Perry could consider the ambassador's words, Lyra burst into the medical bay, her antennae twitching wildly. "Commander, something's happening with Mark and Arya. I can sense a massive surge of emotional energy." All eyes turned to the couple on the biobed. Their forms were blurring further, the boundaries between their bodies becoming indistinct as the energy tendril expanded. Suddenly, small wormholes began opening and closing randomly throughout the medical bay. A tray of instruments vanished, only to reappear across the room. A startled nurse found herself transported from one side of the bay to the other in the blink of an eye. Perry's comm badge erupted with frantic reports from across the station. Similar anomalies were occurring throughout Harmony, causing panic and confusion. "Initiate emergency evacuation procedures," Perry ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Move all non-essential personnel to designated safe zones. Dr. Winters, I need your team to focus on understanding and controlling this phenomenon. Rodriguez, do whatever you can to contain these spatial anomalies." As the evacuation order blared through the station's comm system, Perry turned back to Mark and Arya. Their merged form was now emitting pulses of energy that interfered with nearby equipment, causing monitors to flicker and alarms to sound erratically. A security alert flashed on a nearby console. Captain Hawkins' voice came through, urgent and strained. "Commander, we've got a group of armed intruders attempting to breach the medical bay. They're demanding access to Mark and Arya. I'm intercepting with a response team now." Perry's mind raced, weighing options and potential outcomes. The situation was spiraling out of control, threatening not just the station but potentially the fabric of space-time itself. As she opened her mouth to issue new orders, a blinding flash erupted from Mark and areas merged form, momentarily overwhelming her senses. When her vision cleared, Perry found herself facing a sight that defied explanation. The couple's transformation had reached a new level, their combined form now pulsing with energy that seemed to bend the very light around them. And at the center of it all, the micro-wormhole had expanded, forming a swirling vortex that threatened to engulf the entire medical bay. Perry knew that her next decision would shape the fate of not just Harmony Station, but potentially the entire galaxy. As alarms blared and the deck shuddered beneath her feet, she steeled herself for the challenges ahead, acutely aware that the true test of her leadership was only just beginning. The blinding flash subsided, revealing the transformed medical bay. Equipment floated in midair, caught in localized pockets of altered gravity. Perry blinked, her eyes adjusting to the pulsating light emanating from Mark and Aria's merged form. "Everyone out now," Perry ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Initiate full evacuation protocols. Move all non-essential personnel to the horizon and support vessels immediately." As the medical staff rushed to comply, Dr. Winters approached, her face pale but determined. "Commander, we need to stay. Our team has to continue monitoring this phenomenon." Perry nodded grimly. "Agreed. But suit up in protective gear. We don't know what other effects this transformation might have." The station's comm system crackled to life, Captain Hawkins' voice tense but controlled. "Commander, we've repelled the attack on the medical bay, but I've uncovered evidence of more potential threats among the crew. We need to be on high alert." "Understood, Captain," Perry responded. "Coordinate with security to screen all personnel during the evacuation. We can't risk any further sabotage." As Perry spoke, a nearby console exploded in a shower of sparks. Chief Rodriguez's voice came through, strained and urgent. "Commander, the wormhole network is spreading. We're implementing emergency containment measures, but I don't know how long we can hold it." Perry turned to see Dr. Winters and her team, now clad in protective suits, scanning the merged form of Mark and Aria. The couple's bodies had become a swirling mass of energy, barely recognizable as humanoid. "Dr. Winters' report," Perry demanded, striding over to the research team. Winters looked up from her instruments, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. "It's incredible, Commander. Their biological structure is completely rewriting itself. They're developing organs and systems we've never seen before. It's as if they're evolving to manipulate space-time itself." A sudden tremor shook the station, nearly knocking Perry off her feet. Through the medical bay's windows, she saw a small object, a hypospray, she realized, vanish into thin air, only to reappear moments later on the other side of the room. "Rodriguez," Perry called into her comm badge. "What's happening out there?" The chief engineer's voice was tight with stress. "The wormhole network is expanding, Commander. We're seeing random transportation events all over the station. We're using force fields to isolate affected areas, but it's spreading faster than we can contain it." As if to emphasize his point, a nurse suddenly disappeared from Perry's side, rematerializing across the medical bay with a startled yelp. The deck plate shuddered again, more violently this time. Perry stumbled, catching herself on a nearby biobed. As she regained her balance, she noticed a change in the air. A shimmering, barely visible field had appeared around the observation chamber where Mark and Aria floated. "What is that?" Perry demanded, pointing at the strange distortion. Dr. Winters consulted her instruments, her brow furrowed. "It appears to be some kind of stabilizing field. It's containing the expansion of the primary wormhole, but—" She trailed off, her eyes widening in alarm. But what, Doctor? Perry pressed. It's accelerating Mark and Aria's transformation, Winters replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Before Perry could respond, Lyra burst into the medical bay, her antennae twitching wildly. Commander, she gasped, I've made contact with them. With Mark and Aria. Their minds. They're vast, interconnected. They're becoming something. More. As Lyra spoke, her eyes rolled back in her head and she collapsed. Dr. Mercer rushed to her side, scanning her with a tricorder. She's overwhelmed, Mercer reported. But she managed to communicate something crucial before she lost consciousness. The transformation is irreversible. Any attempt to separate Mark and Aria could have catastrophic consequences for this entire sector of space. Perry's mind raced, processing the flood of information. She tapped her comm badge. All senior staff and delegates, report to conference room Alpha immediately. We need to form a joint task force to address this crisis. As she turned to leave the medical bay, a power surge rippled through the station. The artificial gravity failed momentarily, sending everyone floating for a heart-stopping moment before it reasserted itself. In the chaos, Perry noticed a group of Shindy security officers pushing their way into the medical bay, their faces set with drive. Stand down, Perry ordered, moving to intercept them. This area is off limits. The lead Shindy, his scales overflowing with agitation, stepped forward. We're here to protect Aria. She's in danger from this human contamination. Before the situation could escalate further, Captain Hawkins appeared, flanked by a mixed team of human and Shindy security personnel. That's enough, Hawkins said firmly. We're all in this together now. There's no time for species division. As the Shindy officers reluctantly backed down, Perry felt a moment of pride in her crew's unity. But the feeling was short-lived as another tremor shook the station, more violent than before. Rodriguez, Perry called into her comm badge. Status report. The chief engineer's voice came back, tinged with panic. Commander, the energy field from Mark and Aria is interfering with the containment technology. We're working with the Zeta Reticulan engineers to modify it, but if we fail... Rodriguez didn't need to finish the sentence. Perry understood all too well the catastrophic consequences of a containment failure. As she hurried towards the conference room, Perry's mind whirled with the magnitude of the crisis. The fate of Harmony Station, perhaps even the future of interspecies relations in the galaxy, hung in the balance. And at the center of it all, Mark and Aria continued their mysterious transformation, their merged form pulsing with energy that defied all known laws of physics. Perry steeled herself for the difficult decisions ahead, knowing that her next actions would shape the course of events in ways she could scarcely imagine. As she entered the conference room, filled with the anxious faces of her senior staff and the assembled delegates, she took a deep breath, preparing to lead them through the greatest challenge of their lives. As she prepared to address the assembled leaders, a violent tremor rocked the conference room, nearly knocking everyone off their feet. Rodriguez, report. Perry barked into her comm badge, steadying herself against the table. The chief engineer's voice crackled through, strained and urgent. Commander, the merged entity is emitting powerful gravitational waves. They're causing severe structural stress on the station. We can't hold out much longer. Perry's mind raced, processing the new threat. She turned to the assembled group, her voice firm and decisive. We're initiating a full-scale evacuation. Captain Hawkins, coordinate with all departments. I want every civilian and non-essential personnel on the horizon and support vessels immediately. Hawkins nodded, already moving towards the door. Understood, Commander. I'll oversee the evacuation personally. As the room emptied, Perry's comm badge chirped again. Dr. Winter's excited voice came through. Commander, you need to see this. The Mark Aria entity. It's evolving at an unprecedented rate. Perry rushed back to the medical bay, her heart pounding. The sight that greeted her was beyond anything she could have imagined. Where Mark and Arya had been a luminous, humanoid shape composed of swirling energy now floated, pulsing with power. Dr. Winters stood transfixed, her eyes glued to her instruments. It's not just manipulating space-time, Commander. It's creating an entirely new form of matter-energy hybrid. This changes everything we thought we knew about physics. Before Perry could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Chief Rodriguez's voice came through the comm system, panic evident in his tone. Commander, the gravitational waves are intensifying. We're implementing emergency measures to reinforce structural integrity, but I don't know how long we can hold out. Perry watched as a nearby bulkhead groaned under the strain, metal twisting in ways it was never meant to. She tapped her comm badge. Rodriguez, do whatever you have to. Buy us as much time as you can. As if in response to her words, the deck beneath her feet stabilized slightly. Rodriguez's voice came back, tense but determined. We're using the shield generators to create localized bubbles of stable space around critical areas. It's working for now, but it's putting enormous strain on our power systems. A commotion at the medical bay entrance drew Perry's attention. A group of Zeta Reticulan delegates pushed their way in, their eyes fixed on the swirling energy being. What is the meaning of this? Perry demanded, moving to intercept them. The lead Zeta Reticulan, his large eyes gleaming with barely concealed excitement, spoke rapidly. We must secure this phenomenon for study. The potential applications are too valuable to ignore. Before Perry could respond, Captain Hawkins appeared, his security team at the ready. I don't think so, he said firmly, positioning himself between the Zeta Reticulans and the Mark Arya entity. This area is off limits to unauthorized personnel. The tension in the room skyrocketed, but before the situation could escalate further, Ambassador Reeves stepped forward, his voice calm and measured. Gentlemen, please. This crisis affects us all. We must work together if we hope to survive. As Reeves worked to defuse the situation, Dr. Mercer approached Perry, his face grave. Commander, Lyra's regained consciousness. She's experiencing visions, multiple possible futures. She thinks the Mark Arya entity might be becoming some sort of cosmic fulcrum, a pivot point between realities. Perry's mind reeled at the implications. She opened her mouth to respond, but was cut off by another violent tremor. This one lasted longer, the very air seeming to ripple around them. Rodriguez! Perry shouted into her comm badge. Status report. The chief engineer's voice came back, breathless and strained. Commander, it's not just a station anymore. Long-range sensors are detecting fluctuations in the local star's corona. Whatever's happening here, its effects are spreading. Perry's blood ran cold. The situation was spiraling out of control faster than she could have imagined. She turned to Dr. Winters, who was furiously working at her console. Doctor, we need options. Now. Winters looked up, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. I might have something, Commander. It's risky, but what if we use the Horizon's experimental warp drive in conjunction with our shield generators? We could create a massive, stable wormhole. It might be our only chance to get the entire station to safety. Perry weighed the proposal, acutely aware of the risks involved. But as another tremor shook the station, she knew they were running out of time and options. Do it, she ordered. Hawkins, get the Horizon docked and ready. Rodriguez, prepare the shield generators. Dr. Winters, oversee the wormhole creation process. As her team sprang into action, Perry turned back to the swirling form of the Mark Arya entity. It pulsed with energy, each wave sending ripples through the fabric of space around it. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental, something that would change the course of history forever. Suddenly, the entity began to emit pulses of coherent energy. Systems throughout the medical bay flickered and died, while others surged with power. The chaos spread quickly, reports flooding in from all over the station of malfunctioning equipment and power fluctuations. In the midst of the growing pandemonium, a Shindi scientist pushed her way forward. "Commander Perry," she said urgently, "I'm Dr. Zira, xenobiologist. We might have a way to communicate with the entity. If we combine our linguistic algorithms with Lyra's empathic abilities, we might be able to establish some form of dialogue." Perry nodded, grasping at any potential solution. "Do it, but be careful. We don't know what effect this could have on Lyra." As Dr. Zira and her team set up their equipment, Perry surveyed the scene around her. The medical bay had become a hub of frantic activity. Scientists and engineers worked desperately to understand and contain the phenomenon before them. Security personnel struggled to maintain order as the evacuation continued. Through the viewing port, Perry could see the horizon maneuvering into position, its sleek form graceful despite the chaotic gravitational fields surrounding the station. It was a testament to Hawkins' skill that he could pilot the ship under such conditions. Another tremor shook the station, more violent than any before. Perry stumbled, catching herself on a nearby console. As she regained her footing, she saw a crack forming in the far wall, a stark reminder of the station's increasing structural instability. Time was running out. The fate of Harmony Station, its inhabitants, and perhaps even the entire sector now hung in the balance. As Perry watched Dr. Zira's team make their final preparations to attempt communication with the Markari entity, she couldn't help but wonder, were they on the brink of a breakthrough or the edge of catastrophe? Destruction. The station shuddered again, more violently this time, and Perry knew they were out of time. "Everyone, prepare for emergency measures," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Dr. Winters, implement your plan now." Dr. Winters nodded grimly and rushed to her console, her fingers flying over the controls. "Initiating wormhole creation sequence," she reported, her voice tense but steady. Perry tapped her comm badge. "Rodriguez, are we ready?" "As ready as we'll ever be, Commander," the chief engineer's voice crackled back. "The Horizon's experimental warp drive is synchronized with our shield generators. We're good to go on your mark." Just then, Dr. Zira's team made a breakthrough. The Shindi scientist's eyes widened as her equipment began to process a stream of data. "Commander," she called out, excitement evident in her voice. "We've established contact with the entity." Perry rushed over, her heart pounding. "What have you learned?" Dr. Zira's fingers danced across her console, interpreting the incoming data. "It's struggling. The entity isn't trying to harm us. It's having difficulty controlling its newfound abilities." This new information changed everything. Perry's mind raced, considering the implications. She turned to Dr. Winters. "Can we use this to our advantage?" Dr. Winters nodded, her eyes gleaming with sudden inspiration. "If we can harness the entity's energy output, we might be able to amplify the wormhole stability. It's risky, but it could significantly increase our chances of successful transport." Perry didn't hesitate. "Do it." As Dr. Winters modified her calculations, alarms blared throughout the station. Captain Hawkins' voice came through the comm system, urgent and focused. "Commander, we've got incoming. The gravitational waves are pulling in a debris field. It's on a collision course with the station." Perry gritted her teeth. "Deploy all available personnel to man the point defense systems. We need to keep that debris off us until we can initiate the wormhole." Ambassador Reeves stepped forward, his face set with persistence. "Commander, I can coordinate a joint effort between our engineers and the Shindi and Zeta Reticulan teams." We might be able to reinforce the station's structural integrity. Perry nodded gratefully. Make it happen, Ambassador. As Reeves hurried off, Dr. Mercer approached, his face pale. Commander, you need to see this, he said, holding out a data pad. The entity's transformation. It's affecting the DNA of everyone on the station. We're all changing on a genetic level. Perry stared at the data, her knees going weak from the implications. But there was no time to process it fully. The station groaned around them, metal twisting under the immense gravitational stress. All hands, brace for wormhole creation. Perry shouted into her comm badge. She turned to Dr. Winters. Now or never, Doctor. Dr. Winters nodded and initiated the sequence. The deck beneath their feet began to vibrate as the horizon's warp drive roared to life. Energy crackled through the air, visible arcs of power connecting the ship to the station's shield generators. The view outside the medical bay's windows changed dramatically. Space itself seemed to warp and bend, colors shifting in impossible ways as the fabric of reality stretched to its breaking point. Suddenly, the Mark Aria entity pulsed with blinding light. Its energy field expanded rapidly, enveloping the entire station in a cocoon of swirling luminescence. The entity is interfering with the wormhole formation, Dr. Winters shouted, her fingers flying over her console. It's causing dangerous fluctuations. But before Perry could respond, Dr. Zira called out, Wait! It's not interference. It's trying to help. The entity is attempting to stabilize the wormhole from within. The station shuddered violently, alarms blaring from every direction. Captain Hawkins' voice came through, strained and urgent. Commander, structural integrity is critical. We can't hold out much longer. Perry made her decision. All personnel, brace for emergency transport. She ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. This is it, people. Hold on tight. The wormhole yawned open before them, a swirling vortex of energy that seemed to consume all of space. The Mark Aria entity's energy field pulsed in perfect synchronization with the wormhole's fluctuations, creating a harmonic resonance that filled the air with an otherworldly hum. Perry felt a moment of weightlessness as Harmony Station began to move. The very atoms of her body seemed to vibrate, stretching and compressing in ways she couldn't comprehend. The world around her blurred, reality itself seeming to twist and fold. And then, in a burst of blinding light and a rush of indescribable sensation, they were through. As Perry's vision cleared, she found herself still standing in the medical bay. The alarms had fallen silent, replaced by an eerie quiet broken only by the soft beeping of reactivating systems. Status report, she called out, her voice sounding strange in her own ears. One by one, her team began to respond. They had made it through, improbably intact. But as Perry looked out the window at the unfamiliar starfield beyond, she knew their ordeal was just getting started. The Mark Aria entity's energy field was dissipating, revealing yet another transformation. And as systems came back online, flooding her with data about their new situation, Perry realized that their greatest challenges may yet lie ahead. In this unknown region of space, with a station and crew forever changed by their experience, Commander Sarah Perry steeled herself for whatever might come next. The journey through the wormhole was just the beginning. Beginning was over. The wormhole transport had been successful, but at what cost? As the disorientation from their harrowing journey began to fade, Commander Sarah Perry blinked, her eyes adjusting to the dim emergency lighting. The medical bay, moments ago a hub of frantic activity, now stood eerily still. The silence was broken only by the sporadic beeping of reactivating systems and the groans of the station's stressed superstructure. All hands, report status, Perry ordered, her voice steady despite the lingering vertigo. She tapped her comm badge, relieved to find it still functioning. One by one, Responses trickled in from across the station. Some areas reported minimal damage, while others were ominously silent. Perry's heart sank as she realized the full scope of their situation. "Commander," Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm, strained but determined. "We've got multiple hull breaches and severe damage to critical systems. Life support is holding, but barely. We need repair teams dispatched immediately." "Understood, Chief. Coordinate with available personnel and prioritize life support and power distribution," Perry replied. She turned to Dr. Winters, who was already hunched over a console, fingers flying across the interface. "Doctor, what's our situation?" Winters looked up, her face pale in the low light. The wormhole transport altered the molecular structure of various materials throughout the station. "We're seeing unprecedented changes in alloy compositions, circuitry, even organic matter." She paused, her eyes widening. "Commander, the implications of this are staggering." Before Perry could respond, Captain Hawkins' voice cut through the comm channel. "Commander, we've got a situation. Several crew members are unaccounted for. I'm organizing search and rescue teams now." "Do it, Captain," Perry acknowledged. "And be careful. We don't know the full extent of the damage." As if to underscore her point, a resounding crack echoed through the medical bay. Perry watched in horror as a spiderweb of fractures spread across the far wall, a stark reminder of the stresses the station had endured. "Dr. Zira," Perry called out, spotting the Shindy scientist amid the chaos. "Any progress with the entity?" The Shindy looked up from her equipment, her eyes bright with excitement despite the dire circumstances. "Yes, Commander. We're making headway in deciphering its attempts at communication. It's evolving, adapting. But there's more. Our new location dash." She was cut off as the station lurched violently, sending everyone stumbling. Perry grabbed onto a nearby console to steady herself, her eyes drawn to the viewing port. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat, where there should have been the familiar backdrop of stars. Perry instead saw a dense cluster of pinprick lights, pulsing with an otherworldly intensity. Neutron stars, dozens of them, their gravitational fields visibly warping the space around them. "By the stars," Ambassador Reeves breathed, coming to stand beside Perry. "Where are we?" Perry shook her head, her mind racing. "I don't know, Ambassador, but we need to act fast." She tapped her comm badge again. "All senior staff and species representatives, report to the command center immediately." As they made their way through the corridors, Perry was struck by the surreal transformation of the station. Entire sections seemed to have been warped by the wormhole transport, their architecture a bizarre fusion of human and alien design. In one area, they encountered a pocket of zero gravity, forcing them to push off walls and float through until they reached the next functioning artificial gravity generator. The command center was a hive of activity when they arrived. Screens flickered with damage reports and censored data, while officers and aliens alike worked feverishly at their stations. "Report," Perry ordered as she strode to the central holographic display. Dr. Winters stepped forward, her face grim. "Commander, the neutron star cluster is bathing us in intense radiation. Our shields are holding for now, but they won't last indefinitely. We need to move the station," Perry decided. "Activate emergency maneuvering thrusters." "There's a problem with that, Commander," Rodriguez interjected. "The gravitational anomalies from the Mark Aria entity are interfering with our propulsion systems. We're essentially dead in the water." Perry felt the weight of command settle heavily on her shoulders. She looked around at the assembled faces, human, Shindy, and Zeta Reticulan, all looking to her for answers. "Dr. Zoll," she addressed the Zeta Reticulan scientist, "I understand your people have proposed a solution." The alien stepped forward, its large eyes blinking rapidly. "Yes, Commander. We believe we can create a protective energy shield using our technology. It would deflect the radiation and provide structural support. What's the catch? Perry asked, sensing there was more. Dr. Zoll hesitated. The shield would require immense power. We would need to tap into the energy output of the Markaria entity. A tense silence fell over the command center. Perry weighed the options, acutely aware of the ethical implications and potential risks. Before she could respond, Captain Hawkins burst into the room, his face flushed with exertion. "Commander, you need to see this," he said, gesturing urgently. Perry followed him to a nearby monitor, where grainy footage from a security camera played. It showed a group of crew members in a section of the station she didn't recognize, its architecture a mind-bending blend of human and Shindy design. "We found them in a new area of the station," Hawkins explained. "It's as if it was created during the transport." Perry stared at the footage, her mind blown from the implications. She turned back to face her team, each decision now carrying the weight of their very survival. "All right," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "Here's what we're going to do." Do. All eyes were on her, waiting for direction in this unprecedented situation. "We need to act on multiple fronts," Perry said, her voice steady and resolute. "Dr. Zoll, proceed with a small-scale test of your energy shield proposal. Use only a fraction of the Markaria entity's output for now. We'll evaluate the results before committing to a full-scale implementation." The Zeta Reticulan scientist nodded, his large eyes blinking rapidly in what Perry had come to recognize as excitement. "Chief Rodriguez," she continued, turning to the engineer, "coordinate with Dr. Winters to assess the molecular changes throughout the station. If these alterations have made our materials more resistant to radiation, we might be able to use that to our advantage." Rodriguez nodded, already pulling up schematics on his datapad. "I'll get teams working on it right away, Commander." "Captain Hawkins," Perry addressed the newly arrived officer, "I want you to lead the exploration of this new section of the station. Take a team and catalog everything you find. We need to know what resources we have at our disposal." "Understood, Commander," Hawkins replied, his face set with dedication. As the senior staff dispersed to their tasks, Perry felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Dr. Zira, the Shindy scientist's eyes bright with excitement. "Commander, I believe we've made a breakthrough in communicating with the Markaria entity," Zira said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's evolving, adapting, and it wants to help us." Perry's eyebrows shot up. "Show me," she said, following Zira to a nearby console. The screen displayed a series of complex, shifting patterns. As Perry watched, the patterns began to coalesce into recognizable shapes, crude representations of the station, the surrounding neutron stars, and what appeared to be the entity itself. "It's trying to communicate visually," Zira explained, her excitement palpable. "We think it's attempting to convey information about its nature and our surroundings." Before Perry could respond, an alarm blared from the science station. Lieutenant Farrow called out, "Commander, long-range sensors are picking up something big." Perry strode over, her heart racing. "What is it, Lieutenant?" Farrow's fingers danced across his console, refining the sensor data. "It appears to be a massive metallic object, Commander, approximately 3 kilometers in length. It's just drifting out there among the neutron stars." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. Perry studied the grainy image on the screen, her mind racing with possibilities and potential threats. "Could it be a ship?" she asked, her voice hushed. Farrow shook his head. "Impossible to say for certain at this range, Commander. It could be a derelict vessel, or an ancient alien artifact," Perry finished, her eyes never leaving the screen. She took a deep breath, weighing her options. "We need to investigate. This could be the key to understanding why we're here, or at the very least, provide us with valuable resources. She turned to address the command center. I want a team prepared for an expedition to this object. Captain Hawkins will lead, with a mix of human, Shindy, and Zeta Reticulan specialists. Chief Rodriguez, I need one of our showcraft modified to withstand the conditions out there. As the command center burst into a flurry of activity, Perry felt a hand on her arm. She turned to see Ambassador Reeves, his face grave. Commander, a word? He asked, leading her to a quiet corner. Perry nodded, sensing the ambassador's concern. What is it, Ambassador? Reeves lowered his voice. DR. Mercer has been observing some unexpected developments among the crew. Genetic mutations, enhanced abilities. We need to establish guidelines, protocols for dealing with these changes before they lead to conflict. Perry's mind reeled at this new complication. She nodded slowly. You're right, Ambassador. We can't ignore this. Set up a committee, diverse representation from all species on board. We need to address this head-on. As Reeves hurried off to begin his task, Perry returned to the center of the command deck. She watched as her crew, human and alien alike, worked together, each using their unique strengths to tackle the challenges before them. In that moment, despite the uncertainty that surrounded them, Perry felt a glimmer of hope. They had survived the impossible journey through the wormhole. They would survive this too. The command center doors slid open, and Chief Rodriguez entered, his face streaked with grease, but his eyes bright with accomplishment. Commander, he called out, the Horizon's warp drive is back online. We've got limited maneuverability, but it's something. Perry nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. Good work, Chief. That might just save our lives if we need to move quickly. She turned back to the main view screen, where the mysterious object still loomed. In the background, she could hear Captain Hawkins organizing his expedition team, Dr. Zira discussing the latest communications from the Markaria entity, and the constant hum of a station coming back to life. As Perry watched the bustle of activity around her, she knew that their journey was just getting started. The neutron star cluster glowed ominously beyond the station's walls, a constant reminder of the hostile environment they now called home. But with each passing moment, Harmony Station was adapting, evolving, just like the entity that had brought them here. The modified shuttlecraft stood ready in the launch bay, its hull reinforced to withstand the intense radiation and gravitational forces they would encounter. Captain Hawkins and his team were suiting up, preparing to venture into the unknown. Perry's voice cut through the noise of the command center. All hands, this is Commander Perry. We stand at the threshold of a new chapter in our journey. The challenges ahead are great, but so is our perseverance. Together, we will uncover the mysteries that surround us and forge a path forward. Hawkins' team, you have a go for launch. Godspeed. As the showcraft's engines roared to life, Perry turned her attention back to the myriad tasks at hand. The station needed her guidance, her strength, and she would provide it, no matter what the cosmos threw their way next. As the showcraft carrying Captain Hawkins and his expedition team disappeared into the vast expanse of the neutron star cluster, Commander Perry turned her attention back to the pressing needs of Harmony Station. The command center buzzed with activity, but Perry knew they needed a more efficient workspace to handle the myriad challenges they faced. Lieutenant Farrow, she called out, I want a full assessment of that new hybrid section we discovered. We're going to set up a temporary command post there. Right away, Commander, Farrow replied, already tapping away at her console. Perry led a small team through the twisting corridors of the station, marveling at the seamless blend of human and Shindy architecture. They entered a cavernous room that seemed to defy the laws of physics, its walls curving in impossible angles, and its ceiling disappearing into a shimmering void. This will do nicely, Perry mused, her voice echoing in the strange space. Let's get to work. As the temporary command center took shape, Dr. Mercer approached Perry, his face a mixture of excitement and concern. Commander, I have some intriguing findings about the genetic alterations we've observed. Perry raised an eyebrow. Go on, Doctor. It's not just enhanced physical and cognitive abilities, Mercer explained, pulling up a holographic display. The affected individuals are showing increased resistance to the radiation out there. It's as if their bodies are adapting to our new environment. Perry's mind raced with the implications. Could we expand this group? Increase our overall resilience? Mercer nodded cautiously. With proper controls and monitoring, yes. I believe we could. Make it happen, Doctor, Perry ordered. But keep it voluntary and be transparent about the risks. As Mercer hurried off to begin his work, Chief Engineer Rodriguez burst into the new command center, his face streaked with sweat and grease. Commander, you need to see this. Perry followed him to a viewport, where she saw a team of engineers, Human, Shindy, and Zeta Reticulan, working in perfect sync to install a series of strange devices along the station's hull. Gravity siphons, Rodriguez explained, his voice brimming with pride. We're using the neutron star's gravitational fields to generate additional power. It's taking some strain off our damaged core and reducing our dependence on the Markaria entity. Perry clasped Rodriguez's shoulder. Outstanding work, Chief. Keep it up. As the hours ticked by, Perry found herself constantly moving between the new command center and various parts of the station. She authorized Dr. Zoll's full-scale test of the Zeta Reticulan energy shield, watched as it successfully deployed around a section of the station, and immediately began working on power management strategies to make the most of this new defense. In the midst of the controlled chaos, Dr. Zero approached Perry, her eyes wide with excitement. Commander, I've made a breakthrough with the Markaria entity's communications. Perry leaned in, intrigued. What have you found? Zero pulled up a series of complex equations on a nearby screen. These describe the fundamental structure of space-time in this region. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before. But with this information, we can refine our navigation systems, maybe even find a way to... She was cut off by a priority alert from Lieutenant Farrow. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the expedition team. Perry rushed to the communications station, her heart pounding. Captain Hawkins' face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of awe and urgency. Commander, Hawkins reported, we've reached the object. It's an ancient space station. We've boarded and activated a dormant computer system. It's sending out some kind of signal. Before Perry could respond, the Markaria entity erupted into a frenzy of visual projections, filling the air with a swirling tapestry of images. Dr. Zira gasped, her fingers flying over a console as she interpreted the rapid-fire communication. Commander, Zira breathed, the entity is showing us the history of that station. It was a hub for an advanced civilization, one that mastered wormhole technology. I think this might be connected to how we ended up here. Perry's mind reeled with the implications. She took a deep breath, steadying herself before issuing her next orders. Captain Hawkins, establish a secure uplink between that station and ours. I want every available specialist working on deciphering its database. As the command center erupted into a flurry of activity, Perry felt the weight of command settle heavily on her shoulders. They stood on the brink of a new era of exploration and discovery, with the promise of advanced technologies that could ensure their survival, and perhaps even offer a way back to known space. But as she watched her crew, human and alien alike, working together with renewed purpose, Perry couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they weren't alone out here. The ancient station's signal, beaming out into the depths of space, might just attract the attention of forces beyond their comprehension. She pushed the thought aside, focusing on the immediate tasks at hand. There would be time for worries later. For now, they had work to do, to do. For now, they had a mission to complete and a mystery to unravel. The command center's main view screen flickered to life, displaying Captain Hawkins' face once more. His eyes were wide with excitement as he spoke. "Commander, we've made an incredible discovery. There's a hidden chamber on this ancient station, and inside, well, you're not going to believe this." Perry leaned forward, her heart racing. "Go on, Captain." "It's some kind of device, Commander. It looks like a more advanced version of the wormhole technology that brought us here. We think it might be the key to understanding how we ended up in this cluster, maybe even a way back home." The command center erupted in a flurry of excited whispers. Perry raised a hand, silencing the room. "Excellent work, Captain. I want that device extracted and brought back to Harmony Station immediately. Use all necessary precautions." As Hawkins' team began the delicate process of removing the device, Perry turned her attention to a commotion near the science station. Dr. Mercer was gesturing animatedly to a group of officers gathered around a holographic display. "Commander," Dr. Mercer called out as Perry approached, "you need to see this. It's about Mark and Arya." The holographic display showed a series of complex bio-readings. Perry recognized the intertwined patterns she had come to associate with the merged form of Mark and Arya. But something was different. "Their merged form is stabilizing," Dr. Mercer explained, his voice filled with awe. "They're regaining individual consciousness while maintaining their connection. It's unprecedented." Perry watched as the readings fluctuated, showing two distinct but interconnected patterns. "What does this mean for them, Doctor?" "They can separate their bodies for short periods now," Mercer replied, "but they retain their enhanced abilities and shared consciousness. I've never seen anything like it." A plan began to form in Perry's mind. "Doctor, I want you to run a full series of tests. If they're willing, I think Mark and Arya might be our best chance at deciphering the ancient station's database." As Mercer hurried off to begin his tests, Chief Engineer Rodriguez burst into the command center, his face streaked with sweat and grease. "Commander, we've done it. The gravity siphons are fully operational. We've created a stable energy field around the entire station." Perry felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Excellent work, Chief. How's our power situation?" "Better than ever," Rodriguez grinned. "We're not just protected from radiation now. We've got more efficient power distribution throughout the station. We're finally getting ahead of our problems instead of just reacting to them." As if on cue, Dr. Zoll appeared at Perry's side, his large eyes blinking rapidly with excitement. "Commander, my team has made a breakthrough. We've integrated our shield technology with the data from the ancient station. The result is a more robust and energy-efficient protective barrier." Perry nodded, her mind racing with the possibilities. "Good work, both of you. I want a full report on my desk as soon as possible. We need to understand every aspect of these new systems." The command center door slid open, and Ambassador Reeves strode in, his normally calm demeanor replaced by an air of urgency. "Commander, a word if you please?" Perry followed Reeves to a quiet corner of the room. "What is it, Ambassador?" "With all these technological advancements, we need to establish clear protocols for sharing and implementing this new knowledge," Reeves explained. "I'm proposing a summit with representatives from all species aboard the station. We need to ensure everyone benefits equally from these discoveries." Perry nodded, recognizing the wisdom in Reeves' suggestion. "Make it happen, Ambassador. We're all in this together, and we need to act like it." As Reeves hurried off to organize the summit, Lieutenant Farrow's voice cut through the buzz of activity. "Commander, we're detecting an incoming signal from deep space. It matches the one transmitted by the ancient station when we activated its systems." Perry felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying someone else heard that signal?" Pharaoh nodded grimly. It appears so, Commander. And they're responding. The implications hit Perry like a physical blow. They were no longer alone in this vast, uncharted region of space. And they had no idea if the approaching entities were friend or foe. "Sound general quarters," Perry ordered, her voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I want all defensive systems at the ready. Lieutenant Pharaoh, deploy those modified probes. Use the neutron stars as natural barriers for our perimeter defense network." As the station's alert klaxons began to wail, Perry turned to address her crew. "This is what we've been preparing for, people. Whatever's coming our way, we'll face it together. Now, let's show them what Harmony Station is made of." The command center burst into a flurry of coordinated activity as Harmony Station prepared to face whatever was hurtling towards them from the depths of space. Perry stood at the center of it all, her mind already racing with plans and contingencies. Whatever came next, she knew one thing for certain. Their journey through this neutron star cluster was just the beginning. The command center's atmosphere crackled with tension as Perry turned to address her team. "Lieutenant Pharaoh, I want those modified probes deployed immediately. Use the neutron stars as natural barriers for our perimeter defense network. Captain Hawkins, prepare for a reconnaissance mission. We need eyes out there." Hawkins nodded sharply. "Understood, Commander. I'll assemble a team and prepare the shuttle." As the station's crew sprang into action, Perry's attention shifted to the wormhole device retrieved from the ancient station. Chief Engineer Rodriguez approached, his face etched with commitment. "Commander, we've begun integrating the alien device into our systems," he reported. "It's challenging. The technology is like nothing we've ever seen before." Perry's brow furrowed. "Keep at it, Chief. That device might be our ticket home if things go south." As Rodriguez hurried back to his team, Perry noticed Mark and Arya enter the command center. Their forms shimmered slightly, a visual reminder of their newfound ability to separate for short periods. "Commander," Mark said, his voice echoing with an otherworldly resonance, "we believe we can assist with the wormhole integration." Arya nodded, her eyes glowing faintly. "Our connection allows us to interface directly with the alien technology. We may be able to accelerate the process." Perry hesitated for a moment, weighing the potential benefits against the risks. "All right," she decided, "but I want Dr. Mercer monitoring your condition at all times. We can't afford to lose you too." As Mark and Arya made their way to the engineering bay, Dr. Mercer approached Perry, his face lined with concern. "Commander, the genetic changes in our population are accelerating," he reported. "I've established a dedicated medical bay to monitor and treat the affected individuals. Dr. Zira is assisting me in developing stabilization therapies." Perry nodded grimly. "Keep me updated on any significant developments, Doctor. We need every able body we can get right now." The command center doors slid open, and Ambassador Reeves strode in, his normally calm demeanor replaced by urgent purpose. "Commander, I propose we form a first contact protocol team," he said without preamble. "We need a unified response if we encounter unknown civilizations out there." Perry nodded, seeing the wisdom in his suggestion. "Make it happen, Ambassador. Coordinate with representatives from all species aboard the station. We'll need every perspective we can get." As Reeves hurried off to organize the team, Lieutenant Pharaoh's voice cut through the buzz of activity. "Commander, the reconnaissance probes are returning data." Perry moved swiftly to Pharaoh's station, her eyes scanning the incoming information. "What are we looking at, Lieutenant?" Pharaoh's fingers flew over her console. "It's a diverse group of vessels, Commander. Some appear to be of Shindi origin, but others, they don't match anything in our database." Perry's mind raced with the implications. "Are they on an intercept course?" "Not exactly," Pharaoh replied, her brow furrowed in concentration. They seem to be converging on a specific point in space near our position. It looks like Aroused. Perry felt a glimmer of hope. This wasn't an outright attack, at least not yet. Prepare a diplomatic envoy, she ordered. Ambassador Reeves, Dr. Zira, and a security detail led by Captain Hawkins. We'll attempt peaceful contact at the rendezvous point. As the diplomatic team began preparations, an alarm blared from the engineering section. Chief Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm system. Commander, we've got a situation in the cargo bay. The wormhole is becoming unstable. We're seeing localized gravity distortions throughout the station. Perry cursed under her breath. Can you stabilize it? We're trying, but Rodriguez's reply was cut short by a burst of static. Dr. Zoll's voice came through next. Commander, we propose using our shield technology to contain the wormhole's energy output. It should stabilize the anomaly, but it will limit access to the cargo bay. Perry weighed her options quickly. Do it, Doctor. We can't risk the entire station. As the Zeta Reticulan team worked to contain the wormhole, Perry turned her attention back to the diplomatic mission. Captain Hawkins and his team were boarding the modified shuttle, their faces a mix of grit and apprehension. Remember, Captain, Perry said, her voice firm. Your primary objective is peaceful contact, but be prepared for anything out there. Hawkins nodded. Understood, Commander. We'll make Harmony proud. As the shuttle prepared for departure, the long-range sensors lit up with a new alert. Lieutenant Pharaoh's eyes widened as she interpreted the data. Commander, we're detecting a massive energy surge from the center of the neutron star cluster. It's creating ripples in the surrounding space-time fabric. Perry felt a chill run down her spine. What's causing it? Unknown, Commander, Pharaoh replied, her voice tense. But it's interfering with our shuttle's navigation systems. Perry opened a channel to the departing shuttle. Captain Hawkins, be advised. You may need to switch to manual controls. Proceed with caution. As the shuttle departed, Perry turned to address the command center. This is it, people. Initiate station-wide emergency protocols. All non-essential personnel to designated safe zones. Power up all defensive systems. The station hummed with energy as shield generators and weapons arrays came online. Perry stood at the center of the command hub, her mind racing with possibilities and contingencies. As Harmony Station braced for the unknown, Perry couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something far greater than they could imagine. The neutron star cluster, once a place of exile, now seemed to be the focal point of forces beyond their comprehension. With a deep breath, Perry steadied herself for whatever challenges lay ahead. The diplomatic envoy was en route to the mysterious rendezvous. The wormhole in the cargo bay remained a volatile enigma, and the genetic mutations among the population continued to spread. Yet amidst the uncertainty, one thing remained clear. The crew of Harmony Station would face these trials together, united in their quest for survival and understanding in this strange new frontier. Realm. As Commander Perry surveyed the command center, the gravity of their situation burdened immensely upon her. The diplomatic shuttle, piloted by Captain Hawkins, pushed through the distorted space surrounding Harmony Station. Inside, Ambassador Reeves and Dr. Zira prepared for their encounter with the unknown entities converging near their position. Switching to manual controls, Hawkins announced, his hands steady on the helm. These ripples in space-time are playing havoc with our navigation systems. Ambassador Reeves leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the display. Steady as she goes, Captain. We're making history here. As they approached the rendezvous point, a breathtaking sight greeted them. A diverse array of spacecraft hung suspended in the void, their designs ranging from the familiar angular lines of Shindy vessels to utterly alien configurations that defied easy categorization. Back on Harmony Station, Chief Engineer Rodriguez wiped sweat from his brow as he worked to integrate the alien wormhole device into their systems. Sparks flew from a nearby console, and he barked orders to his team. Reroute power from secondary systems. We need to stabilize this connection before it tears a hole in the station. In the medical bay, Dr. Mercer moved swiftly between patients, each displaying increasingly dramatic genetic mutations. One crewman's skin had developed a metallic sheen, while another's eyes now glowed with an inner light. "Dr. Zira, I need your expertise on this case," Mercer called out, before remembering his colleague was on the diplomatic mission. He shook his head and pressed on, recording his observations for later analysis. Meanwhile, Mark and Arya stood before a holographic display of the ancient station's database, their forms shimmering as they pushed the limits of their physical separation. "There," Arya said, her voice echoing strangely. "Another node, just beyond the Crab Nebula." Mark nodded, his own form flickering. "If we can stabilize the wormhole, it could provide an escape route if needed." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Lieutenant Farrow's voice crackled over the comm system. "Commander Perry to the cargo bay immediately." Perry raced through the corridors, arriving to find the wormhole device pulsing with energy. A stable portal had formed, swirling with otherworldly colors. "Status report," she demanded, eyeing the security team already in position around the anomaly. Chief Rodriguez approached, his face a mix of excitement and concern. "It's stable, Commander, and it leads to another node in the network, thousands of light years from here." Before Perry could respond, Ambassador Reeves' voice came through on the comm channel. "Commander, we've made contact with the alien coalition. They're concerned about our presence here." Perry took a deep breath, centering herself amidst the chaos. "Explain our situation, Ambassador. We need allies, not enemies." As Reeves began negotiations, Dr. Mercer burst into the cargo bay, followed by a group of individuals whose appearances ranged from subtly altered to barely recognizable as human. "Commander," Mercer began, but a woman with iridescent skin stepped forward. "I'm Dr. Alara Voss," she said, her voice carrying an odd resonance. "We believe our evolving abilities could be an asset to the station. Let us help." Perry studied the group, weighing the potential benefits against the risks. Before she could respond, Lieutenant Farrow's voice cut through the air once more. "Commander, long-range sensors are detecting a rogue neutron star entering the cluster. Its trajectory will bring it dangerously close to our position." The cargo bay erupted into a flurry of activity as Perry issued rapid-fire orders. "Rodriguez, focus on adapting our propulsion systems to use this wormhole technology. Dr. Zoll, expand our shields to create a buffer against the incoming gravitational forces. Dr. Voss, I'm assigning your team to assist where needed under strict supervision." As the crew sprang into action, Perry turned her attention back to the diplomatic mission. "Ambassador Reeves, secure any assistance you can from the alien coalition. We're going to need all the help we can get." The next hours passed in a blur of activity. In engineering, Rodriguez and his team worked feverishly to integrate the wormhole technology with their propulsion systems. Dr. Zoll's Zeta Reticulan crew pushed their shield generators to the limit, creating an expanding bubble of protection around the station. In the medical bay, Dr. Mercer collaborated with Dr. Voss and her team of mutated individuals, their unique abilities providing unexpected insights into the genetic changes sweeping through the population. Mark and Arya, their bodies now visibly strained from prolonged separation, continued to mine the ancient database for crucial information about the galactic network of transportation nodes. As the rogue neutron star drew nearer, its gravitational influence began to tug at the fabric of space around Harmony Station. Structural integrity alarms sounded throughout the complex, adding to the sense of urgency permeating every deck. In the command center, Perry stood at the heart of the storm, coordinating the station's efforts while maintaining contact with the diplomatic team. The view screen showed the alien coalition ships maneuvering into defensive positions around Harmony Station, a tentative alliance formed in the face of common danger. "Commander," Lieutenant Farrow called out, her voice tight with tension. "The neutron star's approach is accelerating the space-time distortions. Our window for action is closing fast." Perry nodded grimly, her mind racing through potential scenarios. The station shuddered as another gravitational wave washed over them, and she knew their time was running out. Whatever their next move, it would determine the fate of Harmony Station and every soul aboard her. Perry's mind raced as she processed the flood of information. The rogue neutron star's approach left no room for hesitation. She tapped her comm badge, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "All hands, this is Commander Perry. We're initiating emergency protocols to counter the neutron star's approach. Stand by for further instructions." She turned to Chief Rodriguez, who was already mobilizing his engineering team. "Chief, I need that wormhole technology integrated into our propulsion systems yesterday. How soon can you make it happen?" Rodriguez wiped sweat from his brow, his eyes intense. "We're on it, Commander. Give us 2 hours, maybe less. We'll have to shut down non-essential systems to redirect power, but we'll get it done." Perry nodded. "Do what you need to do. Dr. Zoll, expand our shields to create a buffer against the gravitational forces. Work with Rodriguez to ensure we have enough power for both systems." The Zeta Reticulan scientist bowed slightly. "We shall begin immediately, Commander. Our shield technology should provide significant protection, but the strain on our generators will be considerable." As the engineering and science teams scattered to their tasks, Perry addressed Dr. Voss and her group of mutated individuals. "Dr. Voss, I'm assigning your team to assist where needed. Your unique abilities might just give us the edge we need to survive this." Voss nodded, her iridescent skin shimmering under the cargo bay lights. "We won't let you down, Commander. Where do you need us?" Perry quickly assessed the situation. "Start by helping Rodriguez's team. Your enhanced strength and radiation resistance could be crucial in modifying our systems quickly and safely." As Voss's team moved out, the station shuddered violently. Perry stumbled, catching herself on a nearby console. Lieutenant Farrow's voice crackled over the comm system. "Commander, the neutron star's gravitational influence is intensifying. We're seeing significant distortions in local space-time." Perry steadied herself, feeling the artificial gravity fluctuate beneath her feet. "Understood, Lieutenant. Keep monitoring the star's approach. I want constant updates." She made her way to the command center. The corridors a flurry of activity as crew members rushed to their stations. Upon arrival, she found Mark and Arya, their holographic forms flickering more intensely than ever. "Commander," Mark began, his voice strained, "we've discovered something in the ancient database. A method to create a stable space-time bubble around the station." Arya continued, her form shimmering. "It's risky, but it could shield us from the worst effects of the neutron star's gravity." Perry's eyes widened at the implications. "Can we implement it in time?" Mark nodded, his image briefly distorting. "With Dr. Zoll's shield modifications and Rodriguez's integration of the wormhole technology, it's possible. But we'll need to act fast." Perry didn't hesitate. "Do it. Coordinate with Zoll and Rodriguez. I want this bubble operational before that star gets any closer." As Mark and Arya's projections vanished, Perry turned her attention to the view screen. The alien coalition ships had taken up defensive positions around Harmony Station, their sleek forms a stark contrast to the roiling chaos of the neutron star cluster. "Ambassador Reeves, what's our status with our new allies?" Perry asked, opening a channel to the diplomatic shuttle. Reeves's voice came through, tinged with both excitement and tension. "They're fully committed to helping us, Commander. Their technology is impressive. They're offering to augment our defenses with their own shield systems." Perry felt a glimmer of hope. "Excellent work, Ambassador. Coordinate with their vessels to create a unified defense grid. We'll need every advantage we can get." The next hours passed in a blur of activity. Perry moved from station to station, coordinating efforts and making split-second decisions. The engineering deck became a hive of controlled chaos as Rodriguez's team, assisted by Dr. Voss's mutated individuals, worked feverishly to integrate the wormhole technology. In the medical bay, Dr. Mercer and his staff were overwhelmed by a surge of patients exhibiting accelerated mutations. Perry watched in awe as one crewman lifted a heavy piece of equipment with unnatural ease, while another seemed to communicate without speaking. Suddenly, the station lurched violently. Alarms blared as objects began to float, defying the artificial gravity. "Commander," Pharaoh's voice cut through the cacophony. "The neutron stars entering the final approach. Gravitational forces are off the charts." Perry gripped her chair, feeling the station groan around her. "Rodriguez, Zal, status on our defenses?" "Wormhole integration complete, Commander," Rodriguez reported, his voice strained. "But we're redlining our systems to maintain it." Dr. Zal's calm voice followed. "Shields are at maximum. The space-time bubble is forming, but it's unstable." Perry took a deep breath, steeling herself for what came next. "All hands, brace for impact. This is what we prepared for. Hold the line." The view screen showed a mesmerizing yet terrifying sight. The rogue neutron star, a pinprick of impossibly dense matter, warped the very fabric of space around it as it approached. The Coalition ship's shields flared brilliantly as they struggled against the immense gravitational pull. Perry watched as the space around Harmony Station began to visibly distort, the newly formed bubble of stable space-time flickering like a soap bubble in a storm. The station shuddered, metal screaming as it was stretched to its limits. Structural integrity failing on decks 7 through 12. An engineer shouted over the comm, "Reroute power from non-essential systems." Perry ordered, her knuckles tightening as she gripped her chair. "Dr. Voss, get your team to reinforce those decks." As the crisis reached its peak, Perry made a fateful decision. "Rodriguez, activate the wormhole device in the cargo bay. We need to siphon off some of this gravitational energy." The engineer's voice was incredulous. "Commander, we haven't tested it under these conditions. The results could be—" "Do it now, Chief," Perry interrupted, knowing they were out of options. In the cargo bay, the alien device hummed to life, its center swirling with otherworldly energies. As the wormhole stabilized, it began to draw on the excess gravitational forces, creating a cascade of spatial anomalies throughout the nearby space. Perry watched in awe as reality itself seemed to bend and twist around Harmony Station. The rogue neutron star's approach slowed, caught in the complex interaction of forces between the wormhole and the space-time bubble. For a moment, everything hung in perfect, precarious balance. Harmony Station sat at the eye of a cosmic storm, shields flaring, wormhole pulsing, as the laws of physics were pushed to their very limits. Perry held her breath, knowing that the next few moments would determine the fate of everyone aboard. The station creaked and groaned, systems flickered, and the very air seemed to thrum with awe-inspiring energy. "Hold on," she whispered, both to her crew and to herself. "Just hold on. On." The station shuddered violently, metal groaning under the immense gravitational stress. Perry's fingers tightening Ned as she gripped her chair, her eyes fixed on the interface. The neutron star loomed ever closer, its presence warping the very fabric of space around them. "Commander," Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. "The space-time bubble is destabilizing. We can't maintain it under this pressure. Perry's mind raced. They were out of options, out of time. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm her, Mark and Aria's holographic forms materialized beside her, their images flickering wildly. "Commander," Mark began, his voice urgent, "we found something in the ancient database. A way to use the wormhole device as a gravitational counterbalance." Aria continued, her form wavering. "If we reconfigure it quickly, we might be able to push back against the neutron star's pull." Perry didn't hesitate. "Do it. Rodriguez, get your team to the cargo bay now. Follow Mark and Aria's instructions to the letter." The cargo bay erupted into a frenzy of activity. Engineers and technicians swarmed around the alien device, reconfiguring its systems under Mark and Aria's guidance. Rodriguez barked orders, his hands flying over control panels as he integrated the new modifications into the station's power grid. "Activating now," Rodriguez called out, his voice tense with concentration. The wormhole device hummed to life, its core pulsing with otherworldly energy. A controlled gravitational field emanated from its center, pushing back against the neutron star's overwhelming force. Perry felt the change immediately. The violent shaking subsided, replaced by a low, steady vibration. On the console, she watched as the space-time bubble surrounding Harmony Station began to stabilize, its flickering edges smoothing out. "It's working," Lieutenant Farrell reported, her voice filled with disbelief. "The gravitational turbulence is decreasing. We're holding position." A collective sigh of relief swept through the command center. Perry allowed herself a moment to breathe before snapping back into action. "Damage control teams, fan out across the station. I want a full assessment of our condition. Rodriguez, focus on bringing our systems back online." As the immediate danger passed, the true toll of the crisis became apparent. Damage control reports flooded in, detailing ruptured conduits, weakened structural supports, and overloaded power systems. In the medical bay, Dr. Mercer and his team worked tirelessly, treating a surge of injuries sustained during the turbulence. "Commander," Dr. Mercer's voice came over the comm, "we're seeing some unusual developments here. The gravitational exposure seems to have accelerated genetic mutations in some of the crew. We're documenting cases of increased bone density and enhanced cellular regeneration." Perry frowned, processing this new information. "Keep me updated on any further developments, Doctor. We'll need to understand the full extent of these changes." In the midst of the recovery efforts, Dr. Alara Voss and her team of mutated individuals proved invaluable. Their enhanced abilities allowed them to access areas of the station too dangerous for others, expediting repairs and rescue operations. "Commander," Voss reported, her iridescent skin gleaming under the emergency lights, "we've managed to stabilize the structural integrity on decks 7 through 12. My team is moving to assist with power restoration." Perry nodded, impressed by their efficiency. "Excellent work, Doctor. I want you to coordinate with Chief Rodriguez. Your team is now officially part of our engineering division." As the station system slowly returned to normal, Perry turned her attention to the diplomatic situation. Ambassador Reeves's face appeared on the monitor, his expression a mixture of relief and excitement. "Commander, the alien coalition is impressed by our handling of the crisis. They're expressing interest in a permanent alliance. I believe we have a unique opportunity here." Perry allowed herself a small smile. "Well done, Ambassador. Set up a meeting as soon as possible. We need to capitalize on this goodwill." Suddenly, a burst of energy from the cargo bay caught everyone's attention. Perry watched in awe as Mark and Aria's holographic forms merged back into their combined entity, the process creating a surge that interacted with the nearby wormhole device. A shimmering portal winked into existence, offering a tantalizing glimpse of a distant part of the galaxy. Perry's mind raced with the possibilities. She tapped her comm badge. Captain Hawkins, assemble an exploration team immediately. We need to investigate this portal before it closes. As Hawkins acknowledged the order, Chief Rodriguez's voice came over the comm, excitement evident in his tone. Commander, you're not going to believe this. The integration of the ancient technology has fundamentally altered our systems. Preliminary tests indicate that Harmony Station itself might be capable of generating wormholes. Perry stood, her eyes fixed on the interface where the rogue neutron star now appeared as a distant, harmless pinprick of light. The immediate crisis had passed, but she knew their journey was a long way to go. With new allies, enhanced capabilities, and the vast unknown stretching out before them, Harmony Station stood poised on the brink of a new era of exploration. Senior staff meeting in 1 hour, Perry announced, her voice steady with determination. We need to discuss our next steps. It seems our adventure is just beginning. Beginning. Perry's words hung in the air, filled with promise and possibility. As the immediate crisis subsided and Harmony Station settled into its new reality, a sense of cautious optimism spread through the crew. The successful navigation of the neutron star's approach had not only ensured their survival, but had also opened up new avenues of exploration and alliance. In the days that followed, the station buzzed with activity. Repair teams worked tirelessly to restore damaged systems, while Dr. Mercer and his medical staff continued to monitor the ongoing mutations among the crew. The alien coalition ships remained nearby, a constant reminder of their newfound allies and the potential for further cooperation. Amidst the flurry of activity, Mark found himself with an unexpected moment of respite. Now able to separate from Aria for extended periods, he decided to celebrate their survival in a uniquely human way, by preparing a special meal. Mark made his way to the station's hydroponics bay, marveling at the vibrant array of earth plants growing alongside alien flora. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and the sweet aroma of ripening fruits. He carefully selected a variety of ingredients, his mind already racing with culinary possibilities. In the communal kitchen, Mark set to work. He deftly combined familiar earth herbs with the exotic textures and flavors of alien produce. The result was a visually stunning dish that bridged the gap between two worlds, a physical representation of the station's unique position in the galaxy. As he put the finishing touches on his creation, Mark sent a message to Aria, inviting her to his quarters. He arranged the table, setting out the colorful dish alongside a small vase containing a single, iridescent alien flower. Aria arrived, her holographic form shimmering slightly as she entered. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene before her. "Mark, this is unexpected," she said, a note of curiosity in her voice. Mark gestured to the table with a smile. "I thought we could use a moment to celebrate. It's an old Earth tradition, sharing a meal after surviving a crisis." As Aria sampled the dish, her reaction was immediate and intense. Her form flickered rapidly, and a soft gasp escaped her lips. Mark watched in fascination as her normally composed demeanor gave way to an expression of unbridled pleasure. "Aria, are you all right?" Mark asked, concern evident in his voice. Aria's form stabilized, but her eyes remained wide with wonder. I've never experienced anything like this," she explained, her voice trembling slightly. "In my species, certain combinations of flavors can trigger powerful sensory responses. This, what you've created, it's overwhelming in the most exquisite way." Mark felt a surge of warmth at her words. He reached out, his hand passing through her holographic form in a gesture of connection. "I had no idea," he said softly. "I just wanted to share something special with you." Their eyes met, and in that moment, the bond between them deepened. The shared experience of flavor had bridged the gap between their different forms of existence in a way neither had anticipated. As they savored the meal together, Mark and Aria began to discuss the potential implications of their discovery. You know, Mark mused, this could be more than just a personal breakthrough. What if we could use food as a way to connect with our new allies? Aria's form pulsed with excitement. Culinary diplomacy, she said, the concept taking shape between them. A way to bridge cultural gaps and create shared experiences. Their enthusiasm growing, they decided to present the idea to Commander Perry. They found her in her office, poring over reports from the various departments. Perry listened intently as Mark and Aria outlined their proposal. Her eyes lit up with interest. This could be exactly what we need, she said, nodding thoughtfully. A way to celebrate our shared survival and strengthen our new alliances. Make it happen. With Perry's approval, Mark and Aria threw themselves into organizing a grand feast. They worked closely with the kitchen staff and the hydroponics team to create a menu that incorporated dishes from all species aboard Harmony Station and the Alien Coalition. As word of the event spread, excitement built throughout the station. The cargo bay was transformed into a makeshift banquet hall, adorned with a mix of Earth decorations and alien artifacts. The day of the feast arrived, and the cargo bay filled with a diverse array of beings. Humans mingled with their alien allies, the air buzzing with a mix of languages and translator devices. As the meal began, the room came alive with a symphony of reactions. Dr. Mercer moved through the crowd, his medical tricorder discreetly scanning the attendees. His eyes widened as he observed the data streaming across his device. He made his way to Commander Perry, who was deep in conversation with an alien dignitary. "Commander," Mercer said, barely containing his excitement, "you need to see this. The act of sharing this meal. It's having a remarkable effect on the genetic changes we've been monitoring. It seems to be stabilizing the mutations, creating a new baseline for both human and alien physiology." Perry's eyebrows rose as she took in the implications. She was about to respond when Chief Engineer Rodriguez approached, his face flushed with excitement. "Commander," Rodriguez said, his voice brimming with pride, "I have some news. We've fully integrated and tested the station's wormhole generation capabilities. Harmony is ready for controlled jumps through the ancient network." Perry looked around the room, taking in the scene of unity and celebration before her. The success of the feast, combined with the station's new capabilities, presented a unique opportunity. She tapped her communicator, her voice ringing out across the cargo bay. "Attention, everyone," Perry began, waiting as the room fell silent. "Today, we celebrate not just our survival, but the dawn of a new era of exploration and cooperation. Harmony Station is now capable of controlled jumps through the ancient wormhole network. I propose that instead of immediately attempting to return to Earth, we embark on a mission of exploration. We have a chance to study this network, to forge new connections across the galaxy. Who's with me?" The cargo bay erupted in cheers and applause, the various species expressing their enthusiasm in their own unique ways. As the celebration continued, Perry began to outline the plans for their first intentional jump. On the observation deck, Mark and Aria stood side by side, watching as the familiar backdrop of neutron stars began to shimmer and fade. The station hummed with energy as it prepared for the jump. "Are you ready?" Mark asked, turning to Aria. She nodded, her form glowing with anticipation. "For the first time in my existence, I truly feel like I'm part of something greater," she said. As Harmony Station entered the wormhole, Mark and Aria's forms merged in a kiss, their union symbolic of the greater joining of species and cultures that the station now represented. In a flash of brilliant light, Harmony Station vanished from its former position, carrying its diverse crew towards new adventures in the vast expanse of the galaxy. The feast had been more than a celebration. It had been the first step on a journey that promised to reshape their understanding of the universe and their place within it.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.